Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I'm happy to be here with you today. In fact, we are welcoming those individuals who are over on Discord. They are available and they are joining us as well. That Discord is No Soundbites Allowed as well. We want to say thank you and welcome to everybody. If you're not familiar, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that we can to speak with you about all the issues that affect us because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to free speech, even if your government does not, even if the social media and the internet overlords don't. We believe you have a right to speak, and we want to hear your voices. You can call in at 607-242-1582. Our phone is on and ready for you. In addition, you can leave us chats and tweets on all the social media, and we will try and respond to you because this is a conversation with you. There's so much that's going on right now. It's going to be so incredible. And that's the good and the bad of what's happening right now around the world and in the United States. We're seeing so much happen. Can you believe it's February? It feels like we're in June. I swear, it really does feel that different in time. But with that said, there's a lot happening all at once. Let's try and break it down. I should also mention something right off the bat that I think is kind of important to mention to everybody. I do want to mention that we will have an exclusive interview with our good friend, Larry Sharpe. I've been on his program 3 times. I believe this will be the 4th or 5th time that we've interviewed Larry Sharpe. He is running for governor of New York, and we will be doing an exclusive interview with him next Friday, and we'll be broadcasting it afterwards. Considering what he recently did in a Zogby poll, the way that this has changed and shook up New York State, it should be very interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. I do want to cover something overseas. Now, I know we've all talked about and seen what's happening overseas, but we've been following several stories. We want to make sure that you are up to date with all of the information that's going on because the major news media isn't talking about it. Obviously, there's Canada and the truckers in Canada who are protesting the vaccine mandates, much like we have seen in the United States, in France, in the United Kingdom, in Australia. We're seeing it in Canada. And again, the news media is trying to black out this news. They are trying to make sure that you have no idea what's happening. There are over 250,000, it is reported, over 250,000 people protesting in Canada, which, considering it has about 1/5 the population of the United States, is enormous. The fact that the Canadians have earned a reputation of being very calm makes this even more strong and important. And it's surprising that so many people don't know about it. The news media really is trying to keep that story down. We'll talk more about that in a moment. We also want to mention that there is, in the Ukraine, tensions are high. The Russia-Ukraine border, we know that the United States is reporting that it's 70% likely that the Russian military will attack. We believe that if the attack doesn't happen in the next week, we're not going to see it happen at all. But the United States is saying they're 70% ready, that we will see tanks rolling into the Ukraine. Keep in mind, at the same time, the Biden administration, the State Department under Antony Blinken, has said to every American in the Ukraine, in Kiev, get out on your own. We're not going to help you get your kids out. We're not going to help you get your wives and the non-combatants out there. You're on your own. We basically told everyone in the Ukraine working for the United States government that you're in the same boat as Afghanistan. You're on your own. Too bad. That's the reality here. And that has not changed. In Poland, I know a lot of people forgot the Polish border. That is still a thing. We still see that Belarus is importing people from the Middle East and trying to push them into Poland and Germany. And in Poland, they have had a border up. And amazingly, what is Poland doing as a result? They're building a wall. Gee, what a neat idea that you build a wall to protect your border. Who could have possibly thought that up? Gee, how many countries might have something like that? Actually, it's 100 countries in the world have walls on their borders to protect them. And Poland is building one. This is so important to protect them from illegal aliens being pushed into their country that they are going to spend 10 times the illegal immigration budget of Poland to build a wall on their border. Gee, that sounds like a really strong commitment to protecting their people and to making sure their nation remains sovereign. Are you hearing that from anywhere in America? You won't, because it's coming from The Guardian in the United Kingdom. You're not hearing that from the US news media, who have all but forgotten the Polish border. I didn't. There's also the fact that, speaking of borders, the United States southern border, I know, no one's been talking about this since January. The last thing we heard was that there were 1,000 migrants, illegal aliens, in Guatemala that were on their way to the United States. As of January 20th, there are 4,000. Let me make sure it's clear. 4,000. This is coming from NPR. So this isn't right-wing imaginings. This is the left telling us there's 4,000 illegal immigrants that went into Mexico. They're now in Mexico at the Guatemala-Mexico border, broke through, and they're on their way to the United States. If this follows the pattern we have seen last year, 2021, because of the Biden-Harris administration taking over, then we are looking at somewhere around 10 to 20,000 migrants by the time they hit our borders, which would be about the third week, maybe fourth week of February. Keep that in mind. You're not hearing that from the rest of the news media, but that is a fact. They are on their way and they are coming. On the rest of this, we're going to get to in just a moment. But with that said, hello, John. Thank you for being on with us. We appreciate and thank you for that. Anne, thank you for being with us as well. And Anne mentions that she's very happy to hear Poland is building a wall. Gee, just like some other nation was talking about 4 years ago, because that would help us, and was stopped after spending. By the way, your taxpayer dollars didn't get returned. The billions that we spent on building the wall to get the materials, to hire the people, you're not getting a refund on any of that. The money is spent and it's just wasting away. I hope you feel good about those taxes and the way they're being used. But I wanted to make sure that we covered the world, because on this program, we talk to everyone in the world. We want to make sure that everyone has a chance to be heard. And that's why we do that. I just want to make sure I get my camera right so you can see the comments. And so we're making sure that you're going to get your voice heard, and we're paying attention because it all affects each and every one of us. It's a big deal. And we want to hear your comments on it, whether you agree, you disagree, whatever you think, let us know. And if you do enjoy the program, you do like the information that you're getting here that you're not going to hear from pretty much anywhere else, please consider subscribing. So, I said at the beginning that there's just so much that has happened in the United States that it's affecting us all. One of the biggest things, and it's affecting the rest of the world, is inflation. Inflation is over 7%. It is growing. It is getting worse, and the projections are it will be worse. I'm telling you, it's going to be at least 11%, which means that in the real world, when you go to the store, you're talking about 25 and 30% more to buy milk, to buy eggs, to buy meat, to buy just regular food items. But we're being told over and over again that everything is fantastic. The world is great. You don't believe me? Just look up January 2022 jobs report. We crushed expectations. The jobs report shows strong gains. January job growth surprises with a gain of 467,000. Jobs surged. We missed jobs in January and November. By the way, those numbers were changed after the fact. But everyone's agreeing. We had an unemployment increase to 4%. Notice no one said, what's the unemployment rate? No one actually mentioned that in all those news stories that you can check right now. Matter of fact, I will go back and I will show you live. This is it live on Google with the Google sensors in place. And let's see, not one article, CNBC, New York Times, Bloomberg, Business Insider, Bloomberg.com, Wall Street Journal, Fox Business, CNN, CNBC, New York Times. These are the guys that you rely on to give you information. Every time that the unemployment rate has gone down, they have trumpeted. Doesn't matter. In December, we missed earnings by 50%. In November, we missed the jobs by somewhere around, I think it was 40%. And their headline was, the unemployment rate went down. Don't worry that people aren't working. Don't worry that inflation is going up. No, the unemployment rate, that one number that they count on you following, that went down. And now that it went up, not one of them is going to mention it. Not one of them is going to tell you that the unemployment rate is 4%. It went higher. Yes, we got all these jobs. But that tells you something. If the unemployment rate is going up and they beat expectations, we're doing worse, not better. But let me get back to some of the comments here because I see Dal says, how many illegals broke through the Mexican-Guatemalan border? 4,000. As we were just reporting, 4,000 broke through the Guatemala-Mexico border and entered into Mexico. Jason mentions, and thank you for joining us, Jason, they have to say that the job numbers are good because they're going to have to be aggressive in increasing interest rates, and this is going to kill growth. Well, the reason why they won't tell you that the unemployment rate increased, because that's the thing that the average American actually follows. No one follows how many jobs were actually added or decreased in the economy. No one pays attention to that. No one does the math on this. I do. I used to be a stockbroker. I do political news. No one follows this. What everyone follows is that one number. What's the unemployment rate? It's 4%. They won't tell you it's higher. And the reason they won't is 2022 midterm elections. Everything we're talking about right now, everything that is going on is about the 2022 midterm elections. The Democrats in the United States are so focused on that, they are willing to sacrifice everything. They are giving up Americans in the Ukraine. We've already seen that. We already told you about it ahead of the rest of the news media. They've already given up on them. They're more than willing to start a war if they think it'll be short and it will help to make Biden look like he's a strong leader. After the absolute fiasco of Afghanistan, they will forget about what's going on in Iran. They don't even talk about that until they can get a deal so they can say, oh, we've created more peace, even though they will be funding terror and they know it. They don't mention North Korea and the missile launches. What is it? 7 hypersonic missiles have been fired at Japan, our ally, threatening South Korea, throwing the entire Southeast and Asian peninsula into turmoil. They won't even mention it. They don't talk about Taiwan ever. Come on, folks. This is all about making sure you know what's going on. And they won't talk about inflation. They'll talk about jobs. Yeah, the jobs are doing fantastic. Don't worry about inflation. It's only temporary. Yeah, temporary as in it goes higher than what you already expected. Remember, interest rates are going to go up. You're going to pay more on your credit cards, which most people are using to pay bills interim. You're going to pay more on your credit cards. It's going to eat up all of your money. God forbid if you still have a mortgage that has a variable rate, you're going to get slammed. Your cars, everything you purchase, it's going to go up. Inflation is going higher. I guarantee you it. I can't guarantee it. I'm telling you, I believe it's going to be 11% before the middle of the year. And they're going to tell you, don't worry. It's because everything is doing really good. And you should reelect us, which is stupid. But that's what they think of you. Dow mentions the Polish border wall indicates long-term investment in Polish sovereignty. May cost 10 times more now, but that will pay off by staving off higher costs in dealing with the influx of the illegal aliens. I agree. Look at the United States. We allow all the illegal aliens in. How much more has that cost us? How much does it cost for the United States government, as we know is a fact, to take a plane load of illegal aliens, a private jet, flying that private jet from the southern border to New York State in the middle of the night, and then transporting those illegal aliens to God only knows where, which is a violation of the United States law. But how much money? And for those who are Democrats and progressives who tell me, oh, well, we have to have open borders and it's the right thing to do. You're also eco-fanatics and you're telling me you're worried about climate change. How much does it cost for all these private jets? How much greenhouse gas is being created by private jets, not commercial airliners, not regular buses, private jets flying around in the middle of the night, increasing the net greenhouse gas? And guess what? If we have in 2021, 2 million known illegal aliens entered the United States, and we have allowed to enter approximately 1.2 million illegal aliens entered into the United States. We know they've been running flights in the United States from the border in Texas to New York State since May. We know that they've been moving kids around from the southern border to Tennessee since March. And that's 100 at a time, 100 at a time, 100 small enough numbers that you're not going to notice, that no one's going to really pay attention until they got caught by Project Veritas. And we saw the video and we learned that they are violating the law. But for those eco-fanatics out there, how much does jet fuel how much greenhouse gas does jet fuel create? Imagine they're moving 10,000, 100,000 illegal aliens all on private jets at 100 people each jet across the United States. How much greenhouse gas is the Biden administration creating by breaking our laws and moving these illegal immigrants around the nation so that you don't notice how many people are actually at the southern border? Because Kamala Harris, on her once-a-year trip to somewhere near the border, may actually get a picture. By the way, you don't have to agree with me. You can tell me, Mike, you don't know what you're talking about. Fantastic. If you disagree, I am happy to hear you tell me why I am wrong. If you have other data, you have other information that disputes what I am saying, I am happy to hear that. If you think it is net worth it, I'm happy to hear that. If you tell me that I'm an old man and I'm gray and you don't like me, I don't care. If you tell me that I'm some kind of vulgarity because your feelings are offended, I don't care. If you want to have a conversation about the facts and the impact, the consequences, something that you never hear, there's almost no politician out there who will actually address consequences. What happens next? They did this. What happens next? That's what we do here so that you're prepared and you can make decisions and you can try and change what those politicians are doing, because the consequences are going to affect you whether you follow politics or not. And they're going to affect people around the world because the United States is the leader of the world, whether you like it or not, whether you think we're a horrible nation or not. We are the leader of the world in terms of democracy, economy, and military. We're the king of the hill. So everything that happens here affects everyone else. And if you want to tell me that I'm wrong in what I'm understanding about what's happening in the United States and how it affects everyone else in the world as well as everyone in the United States, I am always happy to hear that. Regardless of whether you're a progressive, member of BLM, Antifa, you're a conservative, you're a libertarian, or Republican, whether you agree with me or not, I'm happy to hear your voice. But don't tell me your feelings, because I don't care. So, I see that we got a couple more comments here. Dal mentions that speaking about Poland, so if 4,000, oh, excuse me, he's talking about Mexico. So if 4,000 illegal immigrants are reported, then the 10 to 20,000 that may show up on the southern border of the United States is the actual number. Well, now, again, I'm going by what we have seen from February of 2021 to December of 2021. And what we have seen consistently in the migrations is when these caravans start, they start with about 1,000 to 2,000 in Guatemala or El Salvador, in Bolivia. They start their march up from Venezuela, and it'll be only 1,000, sometimes even 500. But as they pass nation by nation, and then they get into Mexico, where there are already illegal immigrants trying to get in, they join in and they add on to that. And we see that as they keep progressing through, they add on several thousand through each country they go through. And then they add on all of the people who couldn't get through in the last caravan, the migrant caravan, and they all jump in as well. And that's usually an explosion. That's another addition of about 5,000 to 10,000 illegal immigrants that are hiding in Mexico. By the way, if Mexico finds them, Mexico will deport them. The United States will not. Overwhelmingly, the United States lets them in. Mexico throws them out. There's the difference. But so that means that if we have 4,000 now, normally 5,000 to 10,000 will be added on in Mexico as they go from the bottom of Mexico to the Texas border. That's how I get to, realistically, it would be 9,000 to 14,000. I'm expecting that, rounding numbers, we're looking at somewhere between 10,000 to 15,000 if it follows the historical norm. Dow also mentions Pennsylvania property values used to calculate taxes in areas where we have family have nearly tripled this year. We're seeing the possibility of inflation costing the ownership of property to plummet. Behold the Great Reset. And I'm telling you that you're not, if you think it's that bad, I'm telling you that you're going to hear the reality of the United States government saying that probably mid to late summer, they're going to say that inflation has hit 11%, which means that we will be in a stagflation, something that has not existed since Jimmy Carter in 1977. I'm old enough to remember this. Most of the viewers probably aren't. Look up stagflation. It was created under Jimmy Carter, a Democrat, with his policies. We're about to go back to that now under Biden because his policies are the Obama policies and the continuation, and that's not a good thing. And so what we're going to see is the economy is going to slow down. What that means to you is that everything's going to cost more. And when they say inflation's at 11%, in the real world, you can normally double that number, which means 22. And I think it could be even a little worse, which was why I'm saying 25 to 35. Real world, average people going to the store. Because Joe Biden doesn't go to the store and doesn't know what the increase is. The CBO, the Congress, they don't go to the store. They don't buy food. Nancy Pelosi's fridge, which is filled with ice cream, top dollar premium ice cream, she doesn't buy that. She's got an aide, an intern, that's going out and filling, making sure that that is always stocked up. And Nancy Pelosi doesn't care. She gets $250 million from your taxes every year at a minimum. She could care less, and she doesn't pay taxes on that. So there is a really big disconnect from what you hear the government say and what you're actually paying. And the rule of thumb is if the government's saying inflation 7%, real world, it means it's 14% in your pocket. All your raises, all the money the government gave you, you're getting paid $15, $18 an hour, meaningless, all gone to inflation. You're losing money. Literally, you're losing money. But let me go on. James mentions, and Jim, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Jim mentions how much CO2 does uranium mining release, along with how two gas plants required to power a nuclear plant will take to call it green energy. Actually, Jim, in terms of green energy, the single most efficient source of power in the world at this time today is nuclear energy. That is absolute. That includes everything from mining to the power of the production. Nothing is more efficient and provides as much power as nuclear energy. That is a fact. You don't have to believe me. You can talk to President Obama's former climate change director. He was the climate change czar. He has spoken about it. He's had TED Talks about it. The single best thing you could do is create more nuclear power plants. It is more efficient for the climate than anything else that exists. Solar power is absolutely inefficient and damaging and worse. Actually, the windmills are absolutely inefficient and absolutely toxic to the ecology, the environment. So we can go through a whole bunch of that, but that's Obama's people. How efficient is the green energy? They are not. That's why every nation that has been increasing their green energy sources like solar, like wind, like geothermal, they all are building backup power plants, usually run by coal, that are running 24/7. Don't have to believe me on that. Look up Planet of the Humans, which was produced by Michael Moore. We're talking about the left of the far left. Michael Moore produced this. It's a documentary, and it goes through the actual status of green energy in the United States, and that every time they put up one of these wind farms, solar farms, they're also building a power plant because they don't work. That's the reality. And again, I'm going to the left from their sources to give you these numbers so that you can look at it for yourself. Watch the movie. I've done a review on it, Planet of the Humans. You can go on to YouTube or Rumble or on BitChute or Odyssey, and you can see our review of Planet of the Humans when they go through all of this. So that's where I'm getting my sources from, the left, and it doesn't work. But I'm saying all of that. And by the way, remember, folks, this is a conversation. So no matter where the stories I want to talk about, but I know there's stuff you want to talk about. This is about you having your voice. There are politicians, guaranteed politicians are watching this program. That's why Larry Sharpe, who's running for governor of New York, is coming on to do an interview specifically so we can speak with you. I'm trying to speak to congressional candidates to get a time to have them come on to this program so they can speak to you because they know you're listening and you vote. So tell me what you think is important. But I wanted to go back to, here's the thing. So we know that inflation is up. We know the economy sucks. And the Biden administration is desperate. When I say that they are looking for anything for the 2022 midterms, this is how they've been doing it. In December, they were trying to do Build Back Better, and it completely failed because it was a bad deal. And Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, both of them senators, decided they are not going to punish their constituents with these horrible, wasteful things that were actually contributing to inflation, that would hurt people, that would increase inflation even faster than it's going up right now. They said no. So Biden pivots. As you can see, Biden puts voting rights at the top of the agenda as he's shifting his focus because Build Back Better failed. So he didn't get that, and he needs a win. He needs a political win for the election. So he jumped to voting rights because voting rights, everyone's going to go with voting rights, otherwise you're a racist. And in fact, that didn't work either. So what did Biden do? And I think it's in, do I have this comment right here? I think I just lost my comment. Biden, once again, as we can see, he's now in New York City. He lost on voting rights. He lost Build Back Better. What's he doing now? Now we're going to talk about, well, it's about gun violence, obviously. They're going to keep jumping stories. Whatever, he's looking for something that sticks, that moves his approval rating from 33% back to 40 or so that he can actually help, and maybe some Democrats might not lose in the 2022 midterms. And so now he's talking about gun control in New York State. And he wants to make sure that you understand that he's going to help, because this isn't about, here it is, Eric Adams, the pragmatic progressive, that's his words. He said it on CNN. He's a pragmatic progressive, says that the answer is not to defund the police. It's to give you the tools, the training, the funding to be partners and protectors. They don't want to abandon you. They want to make sure New York City is safe. So Biden went there to talk about gun control and say, yes, we're going to help. And they're not going to defund the police. Instead, they're going to put $200 million into community-based violence intervention programs. That's defunding the police. This is a program. Look at Minneapolis, look at Seattle, look at Portland, go around the state, the nation. Everywhere they have defunded the police or reimagined the police or reallocated the funding, every single time, oh, it's because we need more community investment in this. Folks, they're hopping story to story, and they're trying to spin each and every one of these stories every way they can, because they know they're in trouble. They know that this isn't working and they are failing, and that this is going to hurt them. They're looking for any story they can find, and they don't care. This isn't about doing something effective for you. They're not trying to be effective. What they're trying to do is to be able to win. They care about the election. And there's actually a line in this. And I want to make sure I get this. See, here it goes. Democrats trying to shed the defund the police stigma. They're not trying to help you here. They just want to get rid of this image so that they can look like they're strong and that they're doing something. I believe the quote I was looking for is, here it is. Gun safety is a winning issue for voters. Here's one of the most honest lines I've seen in an article coming from CNN. From CNN. Mind you, they buried this so you would never read this. They buried this so you wouldn't find out. It came out February 3rd. Biden turns his focus to gun violence as Democrats try to shed their defund the police label. Wait a minute, they just shifted to voting rights. Now they're shifting over to gun violence. And deep in this story, we're talking over 20, 30 paragraphs in, all the way at the bottom, they tell you what the honest truth is in one sentence. Gun safety is a winning issue for voters, according to advocates who say their efforts were part of what led to Democrats retaking the U.S. House of Representatives in 2018. That's why they're talking about gun control now, because they couldn't pass Build Back Better because it's economically damaging. They couldn't pass voting rights because even Democrats recognized that it was going to hurt you. It was going to nullify your vote. And now they said, well, let's go to the next thing. And the next thing is that we go to guns. Why? Because guns and gun violence, that wins. Be tough on guns, even though they're not trying to be tough. They're still trying to push the defund the police agenda. They're still trying to get your community workers. They're still trying to get social workers to be added to police forces, not more police, more social workers. They're trying to add social workers and tell you that that's going to make you safe. They're still pushing the same agenda. They just renamed it. And if there is anyone who is on the left, a progressive, if Eric Adams, the pragmatic progressive himself, wants to dispute that with me, I am happy to have that conversation, because there is plenty of evidence in the last 2 years that shows it doesn't work. This is a scheme to get votes. And they just told you that by CNN. They told you the truth. This gets votes. They need votes. They're going to promote this until they find something better. I tell you, it's really sad. There was another quote I want to try and find here. And I see the comments, and I'm going to come to it. Tina mentions, oh, but Biden said we have a booming economy. Of course he did. He also said that the retreat from Afghanistan with our tail between our legs was an extreme success. He told us that the economy was doing, what was it? It was also an extreme success for our economy, even as 7% inflation and the unemployment rate is increasing. But, everything's doing fantastic. He's doing fine. Hunter Biden is making money. So you must be making money. I mean, if Hunter Biden can sell pictures, paintings for $500 million, and he's about as much of an artist as I am, and he's selling paintings left and right for $500,000 a piece, well, then obviously I have at least as much skill as Hunter Biden, the ex-crackhead, trying to sleep with his underage family members. Hey, if he could do it, I can paint something too, right? It's got to be worth at least $1 million. Do you see the absolute disconnect between what we are being told by the Democratic leadership and the life that you're living? And when I say the Democratic leadership, I mean in your town, your county, in cities, the Congress, and in the White House. They're not connected to you at all. And if you think I'm wrong, please tell me why. Because I can show you over and over again, they're not connected to you. Matter of fact, I was going to do this a little bit later. But let me show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Because here's how disconnected they are. This is my councilwoman, in my district, in my city, in the southern tier of New York, Councilwoman Angela Riley. And Councilwoman Angela Riley, who is here to protect the interests of the local community. The last thing that she had to tell her constituents on Twitter is, hey, there's a new map. And by the way, upstate New York, which votes almost entirely Republican, is now going to be gerrymandered to create a huge Democrat win. They're going to cut the number of Republicans in Congress in half. They're going to push Democrats onto the public, even though New York State doesn't vote. Upstate New York doesn't vote Democrat. So the answer is, well, they're just going to get rid of the Republicans. They gerrymander them out. Your vote no longer matters. They're going to silence you. The last thing she had to say was on January 29th that she's there with Leah Webb, a woman that no one remembers, who doesn't do anything in the community and now is going to be running for an elected office. So suddenly she gets a tweet saying, hey, look, it's Leah Webb, that person you don't remember from 10 years ago who hasn't done anything. And the things she did, she made lots of promises that never, ever came true. She promised to bring a supermarket into the community. It never happened. She said Oprah was going to help her get a supermarket. Never happened. I do know what did happen. We spent a lot of taxpayer money, about $250,000. Local taxes were spent on Leah Webb's bright ideas, and it got zero. The money disappeared, just went away. Don't believe me? Ask County Executive Jason Garnar. I know because I asked him, he did the research, and we know that about $250,000 disappeared and no one knows where it went to. That is a fact. I have the interview with then legislator Jason Garnar, now county executive, when we did the research together. And no one knows where the money went. So Leah Webb, useless. But you know what else happened? At the same time, January 6th, there's a person being shot in our community. with Councilwoman Angela O'Reilly, and she has nothing to say about it. And you'll say, well, Mike, that's not fair. What about, go to January, maybe somewhere else in January. This is what she had to say in January. Tell me when you see her mention anything about the kid getting shot in our own community. Because guess what? She doesn't. I've called her out on this before. She has nothing to say. She wants to tell you about feminism. Don't mind the fact that kids 18 and 17 are shooting each other on Main Street 1 block away from a high school. But, she can't be bothered to talk about that. She wants to tell you about feminism. She wants you to tell you about Leah Webb. But she's got nothing to say about, she wants to tell you about ice on your steps. By the way, she said that on January 9th. There is a northeast. There was a huge sleet storm. She didn't make another message about it. She cares so much about the weather. She didn't bother to tell you about the recent storm that just happened. There's no care here. She doesn't care. They're telling you that, it's going to make you safe. That gun control is the answer. Biden's telling you gun control is going to... They're not trying to do gun control, and they don't care. And I can show you. She's got nothing to say about this. Nothing. She's not the only one. Donald Lapardo had nothing to say about it either. She's running for this New York State Assembly. We'll get into that. Dow mentions that how can you have community-based policing and violence intervention when they hamstring self-defense and the Second Amendment? I agree. And again, I'm in New York State, but I can tell you, in California, in Michigan, in Illinois, in Maryland, you're seeing exactly the same things. In New Jersey, in Ohio. Let's go. If you're in a Democratic stronghold, if your state is considered a safe haven for Democrats, they're doing the same exact things we're talking about here in your state, in your county, and in your cities. It is repeating over and over again. Minneapolis, how many cities do you, Austin, Boulder, Colorado, how many places do you want me to tell you about? And I can show you the data that in every single one of these cities, they've put in red flag laws, they've put in variations on the New York SAFE Act, they've instituted every one of the wish list things that are going to protect you, including gun bans. And not one of those cities didn't have increases, historic increases in violence in 2020 that increased even more in 2021. So they had a historic increase of 30-40% in violence, not just in gun violence, but overall violence and gun violence as well, from gangs and criminals and crazed individuals that none of these laws stopped. And then in 2021, on top of those increases, they had additional increases, averaging about 5%. So if you increase 40%, and then the next year you added another 5% on top of that, it didn't reduce. It's not that, they had a 5% increase from some base number. No, that was on the increase from the year before that. It's getting worse in every single one of these Democratic strongholds. And you're not seeing an equivalent reaction in Republican strongholds. You're not seeing that happen in Texas. That's just a fact. Which means there's a fundamental problem here. And your safety, as Dal is mentioning, is not part of the equation. Your feelings are part of the equation. That's why CNN mentioned it. This is an issue that people want to feel good. They want to feel like my politician is doing something. Not that they're doing the right thing, not that they're being effective or efficient. They're just doing something. They are a chicken with the head cut off running around. So they're doing something. It has absolutely no positive impact on your life. And think about that. If it's having no positive impact in your life, that means your neighbors are terrified. Because if everything's going Wild West in your state, some of those people are bleeding over into their state because they think they can get away with the same thing. That's why we had that terrorist out of the United Kingdom, who's actually an immigrant into the United Kingdom. He's actually from the Middle East. He came down into Texas, decided to attack a Jewish synagogue, got killed, thank God, and that's good. And no one was injured. But he thought that Texas, for some reason, was just like New York State. He's wrong. Thank God, he's wrong. And that's why he's dead and his hostages aren't. But that's the message that's going out around the world. And that message is encouraging terrorists and fanatics to come into the United States to try and kill us. Regardless of whether you're a progressive or a Democrat, a conservative, a libertarian, doesn't matter. Let me give you another example of how little they care. Do you remember last week's episode? I showed you that a bill that I have introduced, because you can write a bill, you can write laws. That is your right. You don't need members of Congress or someone elected to write a law. You can write a law. They only need to introduce it and stand behind it. And I presented a bill that says only American citizens can vote in American elections. That we're not going to do what San Francisco and New York City have done. Not in my community. You may say, well, Mike, I don't want to do that. You may not live in my community. I'm asking for my community to recognize that the Constitution and the laws of the United States do not apply to illegal aliens, and they do not get to vote in our elections after being in the country for 30 days. Literally 30 days. 800,000 people will vote in 2022 in New York City after being in New York City for 30 days from anywhere in the world, changing your life and your taxes and your income. And I don't want that in my community. And I was told, nope, can't do it. They refuse to run the bill. I'm still fighting. I'm going to introduce the bill, even if I have to do. I'm more than happy to do it in person. They're telling us no. So here's the thing. And you think, well, Mike, you're just one guy, which is true. And you don't have all the power. I don't have power. I'm as powerful as anyone else that's watching this program. I just got a big mouth. And I've been doing this a long time. And I know these politicians personally. So I can call them up, and I have. And I can go to their houses, and I have. And I go out to the events, and I talk to them directly because I can. But I'm no different than anyone else. I'm just more proactive because that's my job. I'm here to be a voice for those who agree with me. You the vote. Whether or not you agree 100%, to go out and try and make the best case for something that will protect you. But I'm not the only one. And guess what? There are more people who are waking up and saying, we can't keep doing this. We can't give votes to illegal aliens. We can't lock our citizens in their homes like solitary confinement prisoners. We can't destroy our economy. We have to do something. And you know what they are? This is we, the people of New York State. And we have seen similar bills in Arizona and, I think it was Utah and several other states in the Midwest and Virginia. We're seeing more and more counties, more and more cities, more and more people that are saying, hey, we want to support the Constitution. We want to support the amendments. Most people have seen it with the Second Amendment sanctuary cities. But now we're seeing people just say, you know what? It's not limited just to the cities. It's about everything. We got to protect the Constitution because it's all under attack. And in Tioga County, this is what a bunch of people just got together and said, here's our bill. We want you to stand by the Constitution. And the thing that caught me is item 6. Whereas the county legislature stands and will continue to stand in strong opposition to any law that would unconstitutionally restrict or infringe upon the United States Constitution and amendments. Whereas the goal of so that's their thing. They want the county legislature to stand by the Constitution, to not give illegal aliens voting rights, to remember that we have borders and they matter, to not give away New York State gave $15,600 per illegal alien. We spent $2 billion under the disgraced former governor Andrew Cuomo on illegal aliens. 300,000 illegal aliens got $15,600 checks of your money. Came out of your pocket, and he spent it on them. Not your roads, not reopening businesses, not making schools safer for kids, not for gun control. He spent it on illegal aliens. And now they get to vote. Who do you think they're voting for? They just cast a $15,600 check. That is about half of what the average person in New York State makes in a year. They just got half of your annual income. If you're the average person in New York State, they just got half your income, half, from your taxes. And you got the satisfaction of knowing that your taxes went to some illegal alien who's now going to vote in elections to get more cash for themselves, of course. Does that make sense? Have I explained this clearly? Because this is the danger. And I guarantee you, you need laws like this, and communities need to come together like this, not just in Tioga, in New York State, in Broome County, in New York State. We need to see this in California. We need to see this in Michigan. We need to see this in Illinois. We need to see this in Maryland. We need to see this throughout the entire nation, that people remember we have a constitution. That's why the rest of the world looks at America and says, we got to protect America. America's a great place. They want to live in America. Why do you think they want to live here? Because it's a great nation. But it seems like the Democrats are doing their damnedest to destroy it. Unless you think having an open border that allows terrorists, at least 3 that we know of that have been caught, God knows out of the 2 million that came in, how many could be part of them. We don't even know. Straight open. Open border. People come in all the time. 2 million people in a year. 4,000 people are on the way right this second. As we speak, they are marching closer and closer. But, we have the Democrats telling us, well, that's good. That's a good thing. Because there should be no border. And you have human rights. What's a human right? Well, it's a bunch of laws that they wrote in the UN and college campuses that are supposed to be better than the Constitution because they made them. Not because you were born with them, because their politics say that's good. So you should be able to do these things regardless of any of the consequences, regardless of the impact, regardless if it's even worthwhile. And one of those rules is, well, we have no borders. There should be no walls. Remember, Poland doesn't agree. Poland is telling you, yes, walls matter, they're good, and illegal immigration is real. They're not the only country. There's 100 countries in the world that have walls at their borders. There's a reason why they do that. Not to stop all immigration, to stop illegal immigration. Yet another lie that is used against you, where they commingle terms. Well, immigration is important. We should have more immigration. Well, yes, I agree. Legal immigration. Yes, absolutely. Let's make it easier for legal immigrants to go through the process so it doesn't take 20 years and cost, according to my friend, it costs somewhere between $7,000 to $25,000. and can take somewhere between 11 to 20 years. Should we cut that down? Absolutely. Legal immigration. I'm all for that. Illegal immigration? If you broke our laws to come into our country and you're evading the police so that you can continue to break the laws in our country, why do I want you to be a citizen in my country? You break the laws. You are a criminal. By definition, you are a criminal, which is why it is an illegal immigration. You are an illegal alien. You're not from here. You're an illegal alien. That is the legal term, not an undocumented worker, because they don't have a right to work in our nation. We have lots of laws against that. And the documentation they're missing is any authorization to be in the country. They are illegal. So no, it's not undocumented workers. It's not undocumented migrants. They are illegal aliens. They just want it to sound nice. They want you to feel like you're holding on to a little puppy. No, you're holding on to a timber wolf that's rabid. Let me pause a moment and say, you don't have to agree. You can tell me, Mike, you don't understand. These people in Tioga County, they're wrong. You can tell me that immigration is absolutely essential. Illegal immigration is absolutely essential. We must have open borders. You can tell me that. And I want to hear. I ask on this program every weekend, every Sunday, week after week, month after month, year after year. You will hear me say this several times throughout the program. If you disagree, tell me why. Give me the facts on what I am missing. Tell me how the data I am providing to you and the analysis I am giving you is mistaken. Please. You know what you don't hear? You don't hear, I don't know, Assemblywoman Donna Pardo, County Executive Jason Garnar, the appointed Governor Kathy Hochul. These are all people who have my phone number. They have my private phone number, not the main number here, but they have my private phone number. They have my private email. They've been to my house. They want to disagree. They can, at any moment in time, I am more than willing to give them as much time as they want to tell me exactly why they're wrong. And if they were to call into the program right now, I would let them speak for as long as they need to explain how I am wrong in anything that I have just discussed with you. And they won't. Their staff is watching. Some of them are watching this program, but they're never going to call in because they know I'm right. And they just don't want to admit it. And they don't want to be embarrassed by trying to stand up and say, hey, we need more community policing. We need more social workers, because that has never worked in any city, anywhere in the United States, every time it has been tried. Every time it has been tried. But that's what we need, because that's going to get people to vote, because it makes people feel good, because it sounds like they're doing something. They're not. It's not to your advantage. It's not going to work out. It doesn't stop crime. Criminals don't care. But, but they're doing something, so they should be reelected. They won't come on this program and dispute that with me. They'll lose every single one of their votes. I truly, and if you think I'm wrong about this, go to your local politician. Anywhere in the United States, you can go to the United Kingdom and ask any member of parliament. You can go over to France. You can speak to their government. Ask them, because those countries and the United States have tried this. Ask them, what are the numbers? When you try to defund the police, when you have less police and you have more social workers, what happens to crime? And everybody will find the same data that I found. It goes up. It doesn't go down. It doesn't even stay the same. It goes up every single time. But again, You don't have to agree with me. You can tell me, Mike, I think you're completely wrong. Okay. Maybe you think the people in Tioga are wrong. And by the way, at the end of the program, links to everything I'm talking about will be available in the description on YouTube. So you can go in and you can read this for yourself in full and understand that I'm giving you full context on this. Hello, and thank you for calling into the program. There's no Soundbites Allowed. Whom am I speaking with?
Mike, how's it going? It's me, John.
Hey, John. I know you. I was just getting over to, I think there's something you want to tell everyone. Go ahead.
Me? Well, I just wanted to ask you a question. Like, I sent you an article today, right? Breitbart put out an article about I believe it was a Democratic donor. Let me just pull up the article for myself here so I can reference it quickly.
Sure.
And it was about a Democratic donor who's considering making a run in New York State for governor as a Republican.
Yep.
Even though he didn't vote for Trump in 2021.
Yep.
So my question is this. Do you think a never Trump Republican can win in Arizona? Not Arizona, New York. I'm in Arizona right now. In New York. Do you think that's possible? And do you think that's the likely way that a Republican's going to get elected in New York as governor?
Okay. So I want everyone, and I have it on the screen right now so people can see the article we're speaking about. I've read about it, and I am somewhat familiar with this gentleman, Mr. Harry Wilson. Okay. So their focus right now is he's going around and he's calling people in what's called a push poll.
Right.
So for people who don't know what that is, a push poll is when a politician wants you to think something, but they want to use the excuse that they're just finding out how you feel. So they have a very carefully worded bunch of people who call you up and say, hey, you know, it's red, it's round, it's not a ball. Do you think apples are red? That's the kind of question they would ask you. And when you say, yeah, everyone seems to think apples are apples are red and round. Well, it's because of the way you asked the question and you put that into their mouths. You didn't ask them, what do they think about red, round things? You know, I've got something red and round here. What could it be? No, you told them it's an apple. So you got the answer you wanted. That's called a push pull. They're trying to trap you to say what they want you to say so it looks good so they can turn around and say, see, I have a poll. I look great. So anyway, so this guy is using a push poll. He's trying to convince Republicans that he is a Republican. He's worked for Obama twice. He donates to some of the far left progressive leadership that is destroying our state and has been destroying our state for more than a decade. He is trying to tell people that just because I didn't vote for President Trump doesn't mean I'm a bad guy. No, you're a bad guy because you're supporting ideas that destroy our state. No, he can't win. And they love to try and make this about President Trump. He's not in office. He couldn't even try to be in office until 2024. It doesn't matter. But Trump is the demon living inside the head of the news media on the left. They can't escape that man. He owns so much real estate in their heads, they don't know what else to do. And without him, they are mindless zombies lost. And if you think I'm wrong about that, look at the ratings for CNN, MSNBC. See how much they have plummeted. So they don't know how to report anything else. They don't know what else to say besides Biden is great, Trump is evil. Please remember that. Please vote that Biden is good and Trump is evil. And don't think about, inflation, unemployment going up. Don't think about anything else. So do I think this guy can win? No. He has no hope because upstate New York, see, his story works great for Manhattan His story works great for Syracuse and Albany. Sure, the rest of the state votes, not only do they vote conservative and Republican, but upstate New York pays attention to who you are. They actually do look at your history. They actually do pay attention to what you did. And he won't win.
No, it absolutely does. I wanted to know your feeling on if people in New York as a whole, I mean, out here in the West, down here, Trump's endorsement means a lot, in a lot of other states as well. But New York, I feel like, is a very different case. So I was wondering more so, and going back to the Virginia governor's race, right, where Glenn Youngkin really didn't talk about our former president or anything like that. I was wondering if you thought that was a more viable strategy than Lee Zeldman, whom I have not seen. That's not an insult. I haven't seen what he's been doing, but he has been a Trump ally since the beginning. I did not know if that was going to win over more voters, you thought, in New York State overall.
Trump is, see, that's the thing. The media, we're talking about the CNNs, the MSNBC, ABC, CBS, New York Times, they have created this image that only exists amongst Democrats. Truly, this is the truth. This is an image that only exists amongst Democrats, that Republicans are following Trump blindly. That there is no other reaction, there is no other thought. It's all Trump. And if you are a Republican, then you're a Trumpist or you have Trumpism. I get that claim all the time. I'm not President Trump. I think, in looking at the camera, for people who are watching this live or even afterwards, I'm a Black Puerto Rican, and it's pretty obvious. So I'm not Trump. But yet, you're a Trumpist, you're a Trump. No. Progressives, libertarians, conservatives, libertarians, Democrat, I keep getting that. Libertarians, conservatives, and Republicans all are very clear about the fact it's not President Trump, it's the Constitution. It's about individuality. It's about accountability. And Trump is the biggest voice speaking to those issues. So yes, they will vote for him because he is the strongest voice on that, or maybe Governor DeSantis out of Florida. But you're not hearing that from other people. Other people, Lee Zeldin, and again, I'm not trying to beat up on Lee Zeldin, but Lee Zeldin is talking about he voted with Trump. He supports Trump. Okay, and he has some minor issues, like he did mention back on February 1st that he's going to repeal bail reform laws if he gets elected. Well, he's doing the same thing that the Biden administration is doing. Biden's talking about guns because that'll get votes. Zeldin's talking about bail reform because that'll get votes. And I'm not against that. And he's talking about, then President Trump likes me, so he's hoping that's going to get him votes. But the thing that people really care about right now, liberty, individuality, and the overreach of government. Oh, and of course, the economy, how much money you have. And the guy who's talking about that and has a plan for that is important. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we see, and I want to show everyone this, there was a recent Zogby poll that just came out. And it shows that Zeldin's at 21% and Larry Sharpe is at 6%. And Larry, who's a friend of mine, and like I said, he's going to be on the program, I believe that's a 600% increase from the last time that he ran for office. You know why Larry's he got another 6%? And by the way, even if every single one of those people decided to vote Republican, Lee Zeldin would still be losing in the polls. Mm-hmm. He'd still have only, at best, he'd be sitting at 33% versus Hochul's 43%. And that's assuming that every single libertarian voted Republican and none of them voted Democrat. That's assuming that none of the people are being pulled away from Hochul to go to Sharpe and assuming they're all coming from Zeldin. He's still losing. So why is Sharpe getting that kind of an increase? Because, and I disagree with Larry a bunch. I've been on his program 3 times. I have said to his face on my interviews with him and his interviews with him where I disagree with him. And he is my friend. He's a former Marine. He's a friend of mine. We live in the Bronx. Great guy. And I have told him to his face on several issues that I disagree with him vehemently. But he's interesting and attractive as a possible candidate because he's talking about the Constitution, individuality, the reduction of the overreach of government, and reducing taxes. Larry Sharpe, is not a Trumpist. He's about as far from that as you can get, and yet he's talking about the things that people care about. That's why he's growing. That's why he's getting the attention. Hochul and Zeldin aren't. They're losing. And that's why across the country, we're seeing a growth of third-party candidates. Because they're talking about those 4 things, and the Republicans and the Democrats aren't. That's what I see happening out there. Now, people can comment and tell me, Mike, I think you're completely wrong. And you can tell me in Arizona if I'm wrong. But that's what I see. And when I talk to people overseas, they're seeing the same thing. So you tell me, am I wrong about that in Arizona as compared to New York State, which is
It's
night and
such a
day?
different-
Night and day, different states. We've got a red state versus a blue state. We've got Republicans in charge versus Democrats in charge. Very different. But am I right that the Republicans in Arizona, the ones that are being successful and getting attention, are talking about the 4 things I've just pointed out?
Somewhat. It is very different here in Arizona.
Fair.
Right now, the highest governor candidate, like I said, I'm speaking as a private citizen.
Right.
I don't represent anyone. The highest candidate for governor,
Yeah.
2 things, is you got to be pro-Trump. You have to be a pro-Trump Republican. And you got to fight the mask mandates.
Well,
Even though those are the 2 biggest issues here in Arizona.
Let me ask a question about the Trump part of it. And I do see your comment, Dow. I'm going to get to that in 1 second. One of the viewers is commenting. But in Arizona, which has been trying to make sure our elections are fair and safe, even though when last time I mentioned anything about that, I had YouTube shut me down for a week. So I have to be careful on how I word this, because if I don't, they're going to make my channel disappear and they'll unperson me. So Arizona believes in our election system, and they believe in our freedom. And is it that Trump, I'm not saying that Trump's not and I like President Trump. I think he did a lot of really good things. But is it that they're following the man, or are they following the issues that the man is making the point? See what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean. And at this point, it seems more like they're following Donald Trump more than anything, to be completely honest.
Okay. Like I said, I can be wrong. I could misunderstand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. If you look at what's going on with the audit and decertification going on,
Well, be careful with those words.
Yeah.
Don't,
Sorry about it.
No, you can say that, but don't mention a date, and don't mention the impact of that, because literally they'll insta-kill the channel. Go ahead.
Absolutely. But those 2 certain things are the biggest thing right now, and you can see it if you go to the Gateway Pundit or anything like that, which are huge in Arizona. Those are 2 very, very popular things. And like I said, promoting it on the Gateway Pundit, because they really have the pulse on what's going on in the Arizona Republican Party. It seems like those 2 things are really behind, and it is, I mean, even if you looked at the Trump rally that happened in Florence, Arizona recently, right?
Right.
You look at that, people from all over Arizona came to see him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm talking lines miles backed up. Even the line was about 2 miles long, and it was 8 hours before he actually spoke.
I saw some of the video from that, and yeah, it was very impressive.
It was.
And I would like to cover it more, except, I'm already a target on that.
Yes, I'm not trying to get your channel.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's and I
forget sometimes that the censorship is strong with this one.
Yeah, and I have to apologize to the audience that it's not that I don't want to have this discussion or get into better detail to tell you what's actually happening, but part of the reason why I haven't is because I have not only myself, but I have seen dozens of channels insta-killed and just wiped out and gone, regardless of how long, regardless of how many people are following it in Arizona and across the country. And just talking about it, well, instantly, it'll remove all 10 years of YouTube that I've done. It'll instantly unperson me in all social media. And I hate to say that I'm being censored. My hands are tied. It's not just Joe Rogan. It's everyone on lots of little issues. Joe Rogan has the big issue. The rest of us are fighting about the little issues that they just keep stabbing us with. But go on. I'm sorry.
But, I mean, going off of that, and like I said, I call as a private citizen, not as any organization or working for any company. Mike, what do you think? I mean, it seems like Rumble is growing, right?
It is. It is.
We can talk about other social media avenues.
Yeah.
Do you think that with the rise of Rumble growing, especially now, right? YouTube banned Dan Bongino, one of the who is seen as the Rush Limbaugh replacement for a lot of stations nationwide.
Yeah, he is.
You think with more and more people going to Rumble that it's just YouTube is slowly going to get away from the political content, and that Rumble is mostly going to be the political content overall?
No, that's not going to happen. Now, I have to admit, I have met Dan. I've been at CPAC, covered it live a couple of times as a person and as a reporter. And I've met Dan a couple of times. Nice man. And I wish him the best with his health. And his moving over, I mean, I'm on Rumble, I'm on Odyssey, I'm on BitChute, I'm on Discord. Right. So I want to be clear about, I'm on alternate forms of media as well. I'm on Getter. Getter
seems to be having some issues, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think Parler's back or not. I'm not sure. So I'm on that. So I'm on alternate media.
Yeah.
The fact is they're growing, and I'm happy about that. And people are looking for them. But ultimately, they're not going to be the killing blow. It's kind of like World of Warcraft, to give a video game analogy here. There are other games out there that are really great. Halo, as an example. EVE Online, which I'm playing currently. Free. I'm playing it free. And it's not a plug for the game. There's a bunch of other things out there, and they are getting whittled down because they're ignoring their player base. Final Fantasy XIV has been having huge increases. Why? Because World of Warcraft stopped paying attention to their player base. The new Halo movie is going to fail because they totally threw away all of their lore and story. Star Wars, the sequel series, threw away everything because, I don't know, they're stupid and they decided to make their own thing, and it's all about politics. People aren't going to leave YouTube because they're political. YouTube's going to lose people and is losing people and has been losing people because of their politics, their internal politics that say you can't speak, that you have to be shadow banned, you have to be punished, your channel gets to be deleted or knocked down for weeks at a time because you talked about something like as simple as lockdowns don't work. We knew that in 2021, back in May, from the World Health Organization. The director of Europe already said that in May of 2021, which I covered, And they hated that. And that was almost impossible to find that interview, that story that I covered. And now here we are. We find out, oh, yeah, that's 0.2% effective. It was one of the most useless, destructive things we could have possibly done. And we knew it immediately. We knew immediately that it didn't work. Mm-hmm. And the answer was, well, we're going to keep doing it, keep doing it. How many people? That's why people are leaving CNN. That's why they're leaving MSNBC. That's why they're leaving Facebook. Facebook is now losing people. It's
for the first time, yeah.
For the first time. It's because people say, you're not respecting me as an individual. You're not respecting my freedom as an American or an individual. And those things are important to me. So, but it still is a well-developed, great company. Give us 5 to 10 years. Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute. Well, Rumble, realistically, maybe one of the bigger ones. And you'll see it turn into a Fox News versus MSNBC. Mm-hmm. But Rumble's going to get more entertainment, just as YouTube is going to lose more politics, but both are still going to have it. So it's not one replaces the other. It's that they're going to come into a competition like back in the old days before there was cable. It was ABC, NBC, CBS. Then it became, and then HBO came in, and then it evened out. So HBO was there, and then Showtime showed up, and there's a couple of others, and then the rest of them came out, and now we have a sea change. But it's taken 30 years to now see cable taking over. Same thing with Rumble and BitChute, Rumble and YouTube.
It's going to take some time, and it'll become competition, but one isn't going to completely dominate one of the genres, is what your thoughts are.
Right. And but the core reasoning isn't what most people are hearing about right now. It's because of those, again, it's going back to those core issues, I think. Now, people may tell me I'm wrong, but that's what I think.
No, it absolutely makes sense, and I appreciate you having me on the show. I know I wanted to talk about these issues with you. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I always love coming on and talking a little bit.
I got to get out to Arizona. I got to talk to your governor's candidate, and there's a couple of people out there that you know what? I don't think they can.
It's huge out here. I'm telling you, things happen every single day that you're not expecting or ready for, but you know what? It's more and more fun every single day. It's a beautiful area. The weather is fantastic. It's 70 degrees outside right now. The food's much better than New York. Sorry, Speedy, but In-N-Out's got you beat. Gonna be honest.
Yeah. Well, Arizona's also just like Canada. It's got one of the biggest blackouts of news I've seen in the news media. And most anywhere on almost for the subjects, it's overwhelming. I mean, literally Hunter Biden's laptop, the Canadian truckers, and Arizona and some of its actions to ensure that voters are guaranteed not to be nullified are 3 of the things that I'm like, wow, the media is ape about trying to shut those things down. It's crazy.
Going off of what you just said, the Canadian truckers, first off, the memes coming out of it are hilarious. That Justin Trudeau was afraid of some honking.
He is. He absolutely is.
Hilarious. I saw that there were tractors coming in. The rumor has it that there's going to be another convoy in the United States during the Super Bowl. Have you heard about this at all?
A little bit.
I mean, do you think it'll be as successful? And do you think it'll work? Or do you think that immediately it's going to be shot down or not as big?
Probably shot down immediately.
You think so? Do you think probably they'll actually tow trucks? Because it seems like, last I heard, the Prime Minister or the Mayor of Ottawa, I believe it was, said, we're calling in the military. And the Ottawa military said, no, please leave us out of this. we can't do that. And I saw that and the Canadian truckers from all the live streams I've been watching have started taking off the wheels off their vehicles so they can't be towed. I mean, the innovation is so real, and people are trying to get across the border to join them. I mean, this is the biggest protest I've seen in history, probably. One of the biggest. I mean, it is huge. And the fact that they're now have tractors coming in and more people to support them.
Mm-hmm.
Trudeau apparently doesn't know what to do, according to some of his employees. It's incredible. It really is.
Because they're used to people obeying. In Canada, people obey. They don't have the freedom of speech. They don't have the right to assemble. They don't have a First Amendment right or a constitution. They don't have a right to pursuit of happiness. They don't have any of that. So people obey in Canada. Not in the United States, we question, and that's a good thing. That's what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he's so troubled, because the Canadians are acting more like Americans, and they're like, no, don't do that.
Yeah. And like the Canadians said, the protest organizers said, I mean, they can go for 2 to 4 years with the amount of supplies they currently have. This isn't going to stop.
Well, you're forgetting that they had $10 million stolen by GoFundMe.
Which, by the way, is being looked into by Florida.
Well, it has to. DeSantis is getting on it. It's illegal, and it's a crime, and it's stealing people's money.
Oh, and if I was GoFundMe,
in my
I'd be
opinion,
terrified. Would come out to where I am and surround my building and start honking.
You know,
I'd be terrified.
And we should, But just remember, and it's another form of the oppression. It's another form of silencing people. That you're supporting something we don't like. Your job isn't to choose that. Your job isn't to pick and choose where I put my money. Your job is to take my money and give it to whomever I want to give it to. Or do Democrats suddenly not believe in redistributing wealth like they keep saying? Which I voluntarily do through charity.
I will say this. There are alternative platforms that have stepped up, like Give Go, which very, very happy with. They're a fantastic company. People like that have been stepping up, thankfully. And I think we're gonna see that more and more. And I think that's important. And especially if people are fed up, they need alternative platforms. And I'm glad that people are finally stepping up and saying, here's the alternative platform.
Well,
we'll do it.
America's all about competition. That's the best thing we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love it. Thank you again, Mike, for having me on. Hopefully your audience liked hearing some banter going back and forth, some disagreements. I don't always disagree with you, Mike, but I disagree with you on,
that's okay.
You know.
That's okay. You've known me a long time. I've never once been upset about someone disagreeing.
I'm not saying that, going around Trump is a bad thing. I love the man more than anything. I'm not saying. I think he's just such a cult of personality. He means so much, and he got a lot of people into this movement.
Right.
And I think now, more than ever, he's going to be more and more important. And I'm just curious to see what New York will do, and if that will work. And I'm gonna be curious if there's an endorsement in New York. I'm curious to see.
It'll be interesting.
No horse in this race. It's obviously your state. I pray the best for New York, as good as it can be with the redistricting. But good luck, Mike. Great rest of your show. All right.
All right. Thank you.
I'll be listening.
All right. Now, folks, as you heard, and we always are happy to have people on the program to tell us what they're thinking about the issues that matter, whether it's an issue I think of or something that you have on your mind. And I'll be happy to tell you all the information that I know and what I think about them and how it will affect you across the country. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not forcing you. See, I'm not a progressive, and this channel isn't progressive. So that means you don't need to agree to every single thing I say. It means that you don't have to say this is absolutely correct and believe it like it's a Bible. No, you can disagree and say, hey, Mike, I think you got it wrong, or I disagree with this part or that part. I don't think you're seeing this emphasis. You know what? I can't learn unless we have that question. We have to challenge each other. I think Dr. Jordan B. Peterson made a wonderful statement. If you don't have conflict, as in verbal conflict, as in a discussion, you can't learn. You can't advance. There is no innovation. I'm paraphrasing him here, but that's the whole point of this. We can't improve our laws. We can't improve our society if we can't have a conversation. So I love it when I get to hear these things. And if you notice, when John called in, he never once said, "Oh, you're an old man," which he never would. But he had a conversation. See, if you're on the left, you want to have a conversation, you're not going to get beat up on. You're not going to get punished. You're not going to be insulted. You're going to be listened to. And I will listen and value everything you have to say. I may not agree with it, but let's have that conversation. If you truly believe in defunding the police, in reimagining the police, if you believe social workers will help to protect the public, let's have that conversation. If you think Joe Biden isn't just jumping around trying to find anything that he can sell to try and improve the party's chances in 2022 in the midterms, let's have that conversation. If you don't think that Democrats try to silence every single person who steps out of line off the reservation doing something that isn't already approved, and you think that Kyrsten Sinema isn't an example of that, if Joe Manchin isn't an example of that, please, let's have that conversation. I'd love to have those conversations. If you want to talk about Larry Sharpe or Lee Zeldin, you want to talk about appointed Governor Kathy Hochul and why they're getting the ratings they're getting right now, be happy. You want to talk about pragmatic progressivism like Eric Adams, I'm happy to have that conversation. You want to talk about why we're giving non-citizens voting rights, 800,000 in New York City, several tens of thousands in San Francisco. Let's have that conversation. If you want to talk about why in Tioga County, the citizens have to remind by act of law their elected officials that they have to support the Constitution because that's their primary purpose, which means to serve the people and to protect the rights, the God-given inherent rights of the people. If you want to talk about that, I'm more than happy to talk about that. But let me get to some of the comments. So Dal had mentioned that the answer to rising crime is to unshackle the populace and let them train and work in tandem with police to keep peace in the communities. Freedom is the answer. I think a armed populace is a good thing. I think every woman in America and across the world should be trained in being able to handle firearms. They can choose to do so or not. I'm not saying that women must be forced to have a gun, but I think they should all be trained to be able to have a gun, because every woman who wants to protect herself, who wants to protect her family from, well, everything that could be an attack on her, you know what? That is a wonderful equalizer. I think that's important. Democrats instead say, don't worry, blow a whistle and yell, and some police officer might eventually show up at your location to try and protect you. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work out so well. Tina DeBella mentions, not being from Arizona, she thinks that across the board, people are following President Trump for both reasons that I suggested and John had suggested. His agenda, his strength, and his personality is strong. I think that is a defining character of his. A country's leaders, the leader of a country must be strong. Well, there is no question about that. Whether you like him or not is immaterial. Just like whether you like President Obama or Joe Biden, whether you like them or not is meaningless. It is nice. It is a bonus. At the end of the day, after figuring out are they effective or not, that's something else you can add on. If everything else is equal, I could see that being the deciding. But strong leadership is a critical factor, which is why under Obama, Russia took over the Crimea. It's why we saw global terror increase because we gave money to Iran. It's why Joe Biden has perhaps 3 regional wars. It's not World War III, it's 3 regional wars happening at the same time. That's potentially happening because he's weak. Because Obama was weak. Trump was strong. You don't do stupid things internationally with a strong leader that you fear. Whether you like him or not is meaningless. That has never been a prerequisite for a president. And yet we're being told it's supposed to be. Who cares? But let me go on. Bellin, hey Bellin, good to see that you're with us. People trust Trump to do what he says. And I think they trust him because he stands for individual freedom. Not that he's a perfect man, not because he's great, but because he stands for individual freedom. And he's willing to say that out loud, and he's willing to take on these guys and fight them when they try and unperson him. And I think that's important. And that's one of the reasons why people trust him, is because he's willing to have that fight publicly, where everyone else, I mean, look at Hollywood, look at the media profiles, they're hiding. How many people knew that Jeff Zucker was in that relationship and never told anyone? How many people at CNN and in the news media in total, how many reporters knew that Jeff Zucker was going behind the public's back and coaching disgraced former Governor Andrew Cuomo about how to hide 16,000 people killed in nursing homes and 11 sexual assaults that are not being prosecuted by the Democratic Party in New York State that controls all of New York State? That's the Assembly, the Senate, the DA, the AG. They've got all control of it, all the way up and down the government, and they let Andrew Cuomo walk. $18 million in his pocket to be able to use to influence every single campaign that he wants. The man is more powerful now than he was as governor because there's less people who can actually question what he's doing. And you think that he just walked away and they let him free because they think he's a nice guy? Again, you can tell me, Mike, you're wrong. You just don't understand. Okay, let's go through the evidence. Let me catch up on some more of the comments here. And by the way, you can call in too, 607-242-1582. Let me also mention that if you've made it this far, an hour and a half into the program, thank you. I really appreciate every one of your comments and your views. Please consider subscribing. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, DLive, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey. Join us on our Discord. I really appreciate all your support just by watching us, as well as your comments, calling in from anywhere in the world. Dow mentions, inevitably, all great ideas are assimilated and institutionalized, commercialized, and diluted, and the revolution becomes the devolution, and all of it stops being fun. Yeah, true. Tina mentions that there was a rumor of truckers shutting down the Super Bowl, but I think the serious USA trucker convoy is coming from California to DC. Localized areas are already forming to greet them at overpasses. More specifics are coming. I hope everyone shows up. Well, as of this moment, I do not believe that YouTube has a policy silencing us on the truckers. So I'm happy to say, yes, I have been contacted. I am aware that there is a convoy that is being created to do a similar thing to what's happening in Montreal, to have trucks come from across the country into DC to honk their horns at our leaders and to let them know that they serve us. I cannot emphasize that enough. They serve us. Look at the oath of office every member takes. Everyone who's ever elected has an oath of office that they serve us. They're not in charge of us. They do what we say. Please always remember, they answer to us. It's one of the reasons why I think it's important that in Tioga County, and I'm going to try and get this into Broome County as well, this constitutional county resolution is important. This is from the people. And it must, in my opinion, it must be brought to the legislature to be voted on, up or down, because it is the people's voice. It is being considered by the people, and each and every one of those legislators, whether they're voting for it or against it, needs to go to their constituents and say why they think this is a good or bad idea, especially if they think it's a bad idea, that paying attention to the Constitution, stopping non-citizens from being able to vote, from preventing illegal aliens from being able to be in our communities and benefiting from our taxes. If they think that's a bad idea to stop that, then they need to tell their constituents that, and their constituents have to agree. Because they don't get to choose, the public does. So I think it's very important, and I support everyone in Tioga County who's doing that, and we'll have more conversations about that very shortly. I have more interviews coming up about that. And I do support the truckers, the USA truckers, going to Washington, D.C. As long as it's peaceful, I'm happy to hear about that. Dow says, I think the Trump has been the loudest voice in action, but it was clear that in many cases he was definitely for protection of individual freedom as the path to improve and elevate everyone. And I think that's clear. Whether you like him or not, I think that's clear what he did. John mentions, he mentions he's happy that he called because very different ideas, and he loves to have that conversation. And he reminds everyone that I'm not old, I'm 25. Ha ha! Lynn, it's so great to see you. I know I'm behind on some of the comments. Lynn says she agrees, and self-defense, mixed martial arts. Yes, not just women being trained to be able to use firearms, but also mixed martial arts. I'm for that. You know, why can't we do that? In every high school in America, why can we not, for 4 years, train? We used to do, and you can't tell me it's impossible. In the 1950s, we used to have classes on how to properly use firearms and rifles. Kids would take rifles to school every day to be able to fire and to be part of those classes and those gun clubs. You can, and women and men were in them across the United States. We've done that. So you can't tell me we can't do it today. We did that then. And if you really want to say, well, how am I going to protect the school? Well, imagine how many people are going to go to a school that 50, 60, 80% of the students are armed, and you want to be the one who's going to go in with a school shooting? That may not go very well. One of the reasons why we have seen, 85%, I believe the last statistic on this, and I believe it's from the NRA, was 85% of all mass shootings, no matter how you classify them, take place in gun-free zones. Do you know why? Because there's only one person with a firearm. That's why. So, I would say, let's train the kids on how to properly use a firearm. They can choose to do that or not. They can have that conversation with their parents. They can still follow the law, but train them so they know how to properly use it, how to have respect for the firearm, and for women to be able to have the option on how to successfully protect themselves. I think it's something we should do. And mixed martial arts is yet another wonderful thing. I'm going to take a moment here. I remember back in high school, I know, going all the way back, we had one of my favorite teachers was a gym teacher. I forget her name at the moment. I went to Evander Charles High School. And she's about 5'2", 5'3", weighed, 125-ish, little tiny woman. She was in charge of the judo class in Evander Charles High School in the Bronx in New York City. And she used to teach the football team so that they could be better at playing football. A 5'2", she would have him in her judo class. And every year in the class, first day, she'd have a bunch of these 6'3", 275-pound football players in there. There's always a freshman in there. And she goes, okay, so who thinks they can throw me down to the ground? If you can throw me on the ground, you will get an A in this class automatically. And there would always be some new kid who would walk on up and be like, I'm 6'3", 275, you're 5'2", 120. I'm going to toss you across the room. And she goes, go for it. And then she would use her judo and just throw the kid all over the place, wind up sitting on his back with his arms behind his back, crying like a baby. And she goes, and this is why you're in judo. Because just because you're bigger and heavier doesn't mean you're better. Why not teach that to every girl? Why not? There's my argument. Don't give $200 million to social workers. Give $200 million to teach judo, mixed martial arts, and firearm training to the students in high school, especially the girls. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me who doesn't want to spend $200 million on protecting our kids that way. And if you do not agree, fantastic. Call in 607-242-1582. Tell me how that is wrong. Tell me where that is misguided. Let me continue. Jason mentions the DAs are destroying the cities. They are worse than the no bail law. Estwack is going to poop over this Joe Rogan conflict. Well, freedom of speech will always, in the United States, will find a way, but it's getting harder and harder. It really is. Bob Bellin mentions, do you follow Dave Jose? No, I don't. I don't know who that is. Please tell me who that is. I'd be happy to hear about them and check them out. I'm interested to find out who that is. Dow mentions, I will say I was frustrated with Trump and the administration for not tweaking Article 230 to give creators better defined protections within the public square and adding qualifiers for the corporate. No president's perfect. Again, he did fail in that, and I think that was a big problem. Liability protections, talking about Article 230, would be immediately stripped in the face of evidence of censorious or editorial policy. I think that would be absolutely. Senator Blumenthal out of Connecticut actually has said on the record, on the floor of the Senate, that he wants to use Article 230 to increase the amount of censorship that is there. Many of the Democrats in the Senate actually want to increase, and they want the government to control the censorship, not the private companies. So it wouldn't be Facebook, it wouldn't be Twitter, it would be some committee out of the government that would be there to decide, today you've just committed a hate crime, so you're unpersoned based on their political beliefs, kind of like with the IRS scandal. Yeah, that's what they want to turn it into. And I think part of the reason why Trump didn't pursue it is there was enough will and strength in the House under Nancy Pelosi and with Chuck Schumer and Senator Blumenthal in the Senate that they were going to twist his idea of punishing companies for silencing people and turn it into the government now controls who gets silenced. And that's worse than what we have now. So I think that's why he did that. But I'm still upset that he didn't push that further. That's me. You may think I'm wrong. Hot Chicks is with us. Hello, Hot Chicks. I'm glad to see that you're here with us. Thank you. And I see Dow says, in the first year when Republicans had all three branches, they could have done it. They didn't. You're right. I'm upset with Republicans. I'm a Republican. I'm upset. I will call out Republicans when they screw up just as much as Democrats. And I have. For those who have been following this program for years, I will call out any politician who is not effective, who is not efficient, someone who violates their own points of view. I will call them out. I don't care who they are. So when Republicans didn't fix Article 230, and let me take a step back. If you're wondering, what's Article 230? A lot of people don't know. Article 230 is what gives the power to Facebook, Twitter, DLive, all the social media. The reason why they have so much power, how they can unperson you, how they can target you in concert and say, you don't have a voice anymore. We're going to punish you, not because you broke a law, not because you committed a crime, but today we don't want to hear about Arizona. Because today you can't talk about lockdowns. Because today you can't talk about the Canadian truckers. And they will silence you. You can't talk like Joe Rogan. You can't do interviews with scientists, even though because you have to follow the science, which doesn't mean talk to a scientist. It doesn't mean talk to a doctor. It means obey. That's what it means. Because if you're following the science, science has a question. Science is always a question in search of an answer. And every time you get an answer, you ask another question. Science is never settled. They're not telling you to follow the science. They're telling you to obey. There is a massive difference between those two things. Article 230 allows them to say, obey, and they can't be sued for it. They're not supposed to be able to do that, but that's why they can, because Article 230 says you can't sue them. And if we fix that, then you'll have freedom. And freedom is a double-edged sword. Let's get this right. Freedom is a double-edged sword. That means that you may not like everything you hear. And that's been true for everyone's lifetime forever. And you have two options. Listen to whatever it is you don't like, or don't listen to it. I don't like CNBC, MSNBC. I don't like the New York Times. I don't like a lot of the reporting in the Atlantic and many other places, and I read it every day. That is my choice. I'm not forced. There are things like Gateway Pundit, Campus Reform, BBC, The Guardian, Jerusalem Times, the Times of India, countless smaller news stations across this country that I can and do follow, but I listen to the left too. That's my choice. I don't have to, and I shouldn't be forced to. They shouldn't be the only voices that I hear. And that's the thing, because if someone's saying something you don't like, why do you need to cancel them? Don't listen. Turn the channel. Don't look at that tweet. Scroll past that thing on Facebook. Don't watch the YouTube video. I mean, let's be honest. If that's your opinion, fine. You have the right to make a comment on it or to just ignore it completely. That's your power. It used to be called the power of the consumer. You don't like this hot dog. Don't eat it. There's another hot dog. We're not in China. You have a choice. Go get a different hot dog. And if no one's making a hot dog that you like, thank God there's America. Make a hot dog company. And it may work or it may not work, but that's your right. Not that you must have this one single hot dog. Do you remember in December when I went to SUNY Broome, SUNY Broome College in Binghamton, New York, and the teachers put together a program about race and tolerance, and that program had only one option. You had to listen and agree with everything they said. There was no other answer. You couldn't say, I don't believe in critical race theory. You couldn't say that you don't believe in institutional racism. You couldn't say that there are alternatives or that my experiences as a person of color disagree with what you are saying. You could not say that I do not believe that all white people are evil and all people of color are victims. You could not say that in the program. In other words, you had zero freedom. I did a 2-hour review showing you word for word everything that they presented to these students. And not one time did they ever present even a word that didn't follow with "you must obey," which is why I denounced that, which is why I have teachers, professors at SUNY Broome and across other areas that are angry with me because I do not obey when someone tells me you must hate someone because of the color of their skin. I don't care who that person is, what the color of their skin is. It's wrong. That's racism. And the fact that I happen to be 20 to 30 years older than most of the professors who are trying to tell me how to be black, who aren't black and are younger than me, and they're trying to tell me how to live my life. See, that's the problem. That is a railroad. That is a single path with no deviation, and that's how they punish you. We need to make sure America doesn't go down that line. That's what I think. But let me go on. Let me go back to some of the comments, because I love hearing from you guys. I really do. Let's see. Jason mentions, remember Trump was dealing with deep state and had no support first year and COVID his last. Yeah, he didn't have a lot of time, and he was fighting an uphill battle all the way. Republicans believed the Russian narrative the first year. Well, we got told we were going to be in war with Russia, and then China, then North Korea, then Iran. Every year that, and actually a couple times throughout the year, every year of the Trump administration, we were told we were going into World War III. And today, we're closer to it than ever before. Go figure. Let me see. John mentions, what's my favorite Star Wars character? Okay. Wow. I haven't actually had to think about that in a long time. I would say Luke Skywalker is my favorite Star Wars character. I mean, there's a lot of characters in Star Wars. I mean, yeah, I like the classics. I like him. I also like K2SO. I don't like Rogue One. I think it was a miserable, stupid movie that never needed to be made. It just wasn't well thought out. But of the sequels and the damage that Disney did, it's the only one that's passable. And he had a great character. And I think that's because of the actor who does Walsh. He played Walsh in Firefly. I think he's a great actor. I think he does a great job. So I liked his lines and I liked that character. But my favorite would definitely have to be Luke Skywalker, which I know, shock and amazement for people who are under the age of 30, a black Hispanic man who's 53 can relate to a white male character. Oh my God. Can that possibly happen? Can someone relate to or find to be heroic a character that isn't exactly like them? Yes. I also like Wade Wilson, otherwise known as Deadpool, both the movie version by Ryan Reynolds and as well as in the comic book, which I first found out about him in, what was it, New Mutants number 98 when he first appeared. Fantastic character. Love that character. Love the wit of that character. Love the insanity of that character. I find him to be a fun character. I am not a mutant. I am not someone suffering from cancer. I'm not technically insane. I know many people would argue that, but I'm not. So, it just doesn't make sense. I think Ellen Ripley is a fantastic character. I love Ellen Ripley. I loved her in Aliens, not the first movie, the second movie. I think she came out and was a star in that movie. She kicked ass. But I'm not a woman. I'm not in the future in space with a bunch of aliens. And I think Vasquez in the movie Aliens was a great character. Besides, she has a great last name. Haha. But I think she's great. And you know what? The woman who plays in Aliens as the character Vasquez, did you know she's actually a Jewish woman? She's not Spanish. She's Jewish. And she did a great job. And I think she had a great character. And I don't care that she's Jewish or a woman. So, I mean, this thought that we can only be accepting of someone who is exactly like we are is stupid. I like Zorro. But, you know, it doesn't make sense. And again, that's trying to train people to obey. You can't like Luke Skywalker. You can't like Ellen Ripley. You can't like Vasquez from the movie Aliens. You can't like Deadpool unless you are exactly like them. Because we told you you can only like someone exactly like you. I'm supposed to like 50 Cent? I'm sorry. He's a criminal who got shot 9 times at point blank range, and he's lucky that they didn't have a reload, better aim, or an extra magazine, because they should have shot him more. He's a criminal. I have no respect for him. Why should I? And I don't relate to him. I don't relate to Bismarck E or Big E, or I don't care about any of them. And I shouldn't be limited to that. I do like Beethoven. I love Beethoven. I love the 4 Seasons. Why should I be limited to just rap music? Because of the color of my skin? Really? Say that to Biden's Supreme Court pick, who's going to be black and a woman just because of the color of her skin and the sex, the gender that she has, not because she's qualified, but because she fills the check boxes, and tell her when she's getting through the Senate approval, ask her if she listens to Bismarck E. Ask her if she listens to Tupac. And when she says no, if she says no, then try and tell her, well, don't you relate to them? What's wrong with you? Ask her why she isn't bouncing her butt around like on a stage, like whatever that actor was at the that singer at the Grammys. Is our Supreme Court justice, who's going to be a black and a woman, is she supposed to be exactly like them, bouncing around in almost nothing in their clothing, just bouncing their butt around? Wouldn't even asking her that question be insulting? Then why do you expect the rest of the population of blacks or Hispanics or whites or whatever, or Asians, to live by that same kind of standard of you can't be anything that we didn't create a box for already? God, somebody quote that section I just did, and please tell me that I'm wrong. Please show people that and ask them, do you want the next Supreme Court justice who is going to be a black woman because she's a black woman, full stop? You forgot whether or not she's a lawyer or if she's even good. And is someone going to ask her, does she listen to Tupac or whatever the latest rapper is? And will she go around dancing, bouncing around in next to nothing? And see if that's responded by as being insulting. And when they say it is insulting, that's racist, that's sexist, then ask them, so why do you want the rest of the population to do exactly that? Why are you telling us that we can't relate, that we're not capable, we don't have the mental capacity to relate to someone else unless we're doing exactly what we are being told and shown to do? This is the progressive logic. I'm just putting it into a context no one else in the news media will for you. You can tell me you think I'm wrong. Tell me why. Let me go back to the comments because I stopped for a second. Bellin mentions he is behind the gentleman you mentioned, Dave Jose, is behind the affidavit MoMA's affidavits and notices for maladministration to officials seems to work. Watch him on YouTube. Okay, I can look at it. Hot Chick says, oh, are you saying that the woman who played Vasquez was I know she was Jewish. I don't believe she's Spanish. Are you sure about that? I don't know. Jeanette Ambrose. Hello, Jeanette. I don't think I've seen you on the channel before. I'm glad to see you. Thank you for joining us today. Albany Libertarian listening in. Good afternoon to all. Good afternoon to you. And Jeanette asks, wondering if Michelle Obama might pop in. Does she still retain her law degree? You know, I'll tell you the number, Jeanette, that's a good question. And I don't think a lot of people have asked that. And yes, she fills the box on woman. Yes, and I know some people dispute that, but yes. And she's black. Okay. Lawyer. Bonus. She's a lawyer. Except she already gave up her law degree. She's never served on a federal court, as I recall. So she was never a federal judge, especially a federal appellate judge, which is a high criteria for anyone who would be in the Supreme Court. But the biggest problem for Michelle Obama about getting put onto the Supreme Court, she's too old. There is, I think CNN and the New York Times did articles on this, and the actual number of people that would fit the criteria that the Democratic Party wants for the Supreme Court justice, being progressive, being black, being a woman, limits them, and being under the age of 55 limits them to roughly 11 women that have the proper background. And even in that group, out of that 11, there's at least 3 others that you have to throw out because they've never been a federal judge or a federal appellate judge. And in fact, I think 2 of them have never been judges at all. They're just attorneys. One of them is a tax attorney. Tax. Imagine that there would be someone in the Supreme Court who for their entire life did nothing but taxes, and they're supposed to decide the Second Amendment. But all of their case law, everything they know, everything they dealt with as a lawyer, not a judge, as a lawyer, was about taxes. And now they're supposed to answer the Supreme Court. They've never run an appeal before. They've never been an appellate judge before. They've never dealt with other cases. All they know is tax law, and now they're in the Supreme Court. Do you think that's effective? Do you think that's efficient? Because she fills the box of woman, black, and young. That's insulting. At least that's the way I see it. You can tell me I'm wrong. And I understand technically anyone could be put into the Supreme Court. Anyone technically could be a judge. That's absolutely true. You look at the rules, you don't need to be a judge to be in the Supreme Court, but it tends to help. You don't need to be a federal appointee or elected to be a Supreme Court justice, but it helps. You don't need to deal with appeals, but it helps. It's a big part of the job. So yeah, that kind of experience helps. It makes you efficient. It makes you effective. But that's not what they care about. So it is a good question, Jeanette, and I don't recall having seen anyone asked about Michelle Obama, because for all of the Democrats, they instantly throw her out because she's old. Gone. So she doesn't count. But if she was younger, they'd be screaming that she has to be picked. Not because she's actually good as a lawyer, but because she's young enough. Yeah. No. That's, Jeanette mentions, oh my God, not to give them any ideas, as someone for the IRS. No, seriously. That is one of the identified. And here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize this. When you see a list of potential nominees for whatever position in government, almost every single time, that list is a leak from whatever political group or organization trying to influence and trying to gauge the reaction of the public. So I know that CNN and New York Times have put out this list, said there's 11 women who could be picked because they're black, a woman, and the right age. And literally in their articles, those are the first three criteria: black, woman, age. Then after all of that has been sorted out, then they get into, oh, do they have qualifications? Not really that important. That's why we can have a tax lawyer. A tax lawyer. Okay. So the reason why that story was put out by CNN, New York Times, and specifically CNN and New York Times, why? Because they want to see the reaction from Democrats and progressives. Which person do they like? Which person, then they go to Google and they watch the reactions. What names of these candidates is going higher and getting positive traction? That person now becomes more positive. Why? Because it's an election year. And if they pick the most popular candidate out of this very small list, they know they're going to get the best feedback from their voters, especially, and here's the really, Janet, this is really the wicked part. They want Republicans to fight against this. The reason why Justice Breyer said this in January and not June is because they want Republicans to say this is an unqualified person because they're a tax lawyer and they're unqualified. So that the the Democrats can then turn around and say, see, they don't like her because she's black and a woman. And they will spend 6 months screaming, Republicans don't want blacks and women in government, even though, did you see the lieutenant governor in Virginia? Did you notice the nice little permanent suntan she has and her strong defense of the Second Amendment? But that's not important. There are no blacks or women or black women in the Republican Party. That doesn't exist. Right. Okay. Yeah, that's stupid. But they're going to paste the news media all day and all night saying that Republicans hate blacks and women right up to the election, because that will get their voters out to vote, because they got nothing else. The economy is crap. International policy sucks. It doesn't exist. They are failing at everything they're trying to put together, and their own party doesn't support the things they're trying to put together. The only way they can get people out to vote, and I think the biggest thing that they've been pushing, because the gun control thing that they're doing in New York is going to fail on its face. I'm very sure of it. So they need, and what do they have? Republicans hate black women. That will get progressives to go out and vote. They hope. They hope people are stupid enough not to think about it beyond, oh, well, that's evil. Okay, I'm going to vote against the racists. That's it. They're not going to think about it. And it's sad. But if people disagree with me, please, 607-242-1582. It's just right above me. You can call in, or you can be like Jeanette and Jason and Dal and Hot Chicks and so many others that have been putting in comments, and let me know what you think. I'm happy to hear it. Or you can call in like John did. Dal mentioned I think he's referring to Michelle Obama, would love to argue how to legislate from the bench and how the Obamacare needs to be reinstated in full, and how the government has the authority to tax you to death over it. I'm sure she would love to make that argument, but even Democrats don't believe in that. I mean, the reason why Obamacare doesn't work at the moment, it has never been put in place at 100%. Because Democrats know it is such a bad law that it's screwed up. They know it doesn't work, so they're not even bothering. Jason mentions, remember, they're not black if they did not vote for Biden. If they didn't vote for Biden, they wouldn't be on the list to be considered. Dow mentions which energizes their base to build momentum for the vote. Yes. And that's what everything that's going on is about. That's why Biden was in New York City talking about gun violence, because where was he in 2021 as gun violence increased over the levels of 2020? Why didn't he go to Portland or Seattle, Boulder, Austin? And what about in Indianapolis, where a young mother was killed because all lives matter? She dared to say that, and they killed her for it. Why didn't he go there? There are 22 cities across the United States that have had astronomical, well, not quite astronomical, significant and in multiples of growth of violence. Why didn't he go to any of them? Why didn't Joe go to Chicago, one of the leading murder capitals in the United States? Why didn't he go there? Oh, because it wouldn't be politically advantageous. Because everything he's talking about has failed. Because this isn't about trying to make lives better. It's about to get more votes. Really sad. And I think we mentioned this a little bit earlier. So yeah, CNN, Zucker, gone. My big thing is Chris Cuomo knew that he was in a relationship. Didn't Chris Cuomo's the only person that knew that Jeff Zucker was in a relationship? No one else in that office, none of the other reporters knew about this and didn't say a word. None of them? That they're that dumb? Are they that inefficient at their job, which is reporting, which requires research to observe facts around them? Are they so ignorant at that job, so inefficient at that job, they didn't notice their boss was dating someone in the same office? They had no clue? So maybe they're willing to turn a blind eye and not tell you the truth when it's not advantageous for them. And if they knew about that relationship, let's assume that they were efficient at their job, that they were at least marginally awake when they were in the office. Are you trying to tell me that they didn't notice that Zucker was working with former disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo about the 11 women he sexually abused, and the fact that he killed 16,000 people, even as Chris Cuomo abused people as well? Even as how many people in CNN are abusing women and children? And they weren't willing to do a single story or fire. You know what? They didn't even fire these guys. The producer he's importing kids into his house from across the country so he can have sex with little children, otherwise known as pedophilia, as it has been alleged. And you know what? Maybe you don't want to report. Maybe you don't want to report it. Fire him. If you don't want to report it because it looks bad for your station, you don't want the bad just fire him. No one knew who he was. No one was paying attention to his name. Just fire him because it's sick. Period. Pedophilia is sick. And if you don't agree with me on that, I don't care. I don't care if you don't agree. Pedophilia is sick. Fire him. They wouldn't fire him. That's a bad company, and there's a lot of problems there. I also wanted to bring up a couple stories. Let me try and run through a couple things. We were talking about the GoFundMe, the Canadian truckers, and that GoFundMe is stealing, commandeered $9 million, I'm rounding up, $10 million from the Canadian truckers, which if they can do it, by the way, you should be concerned about this. If they can take the money, if they can take millions from Canadian truckers, they can take your money too. If they can get away with this and say, well, we don't like their politics, I'm taking the money, they can take your money too. For whatever you believe in. I don't care if it's progressive or not. You could be giving money to BLM, which money has disappeared. $66 million of the money donated to BLM has disappeared. No one knows where it went, but we do know that the founder, a self-avowed communist, has been buying mansions in Canada as well as across the United States. So we know that's going on, but who knows where the money is. But GoFundMe, if they can take the money from the truckers, they can take your money too. So if you don't want to stop GoFundMe, let me put it another way. It is in your selfish self-interest to make sure that these truckers get every single penny of the money that GoFundMe has for them. Because if they don't, your money is next. It's just that simple. If you don't want to protect them, your money will be taken. Why wouldn't they take your money too? I also wanted to talk about Johns Hopkins. By the way, this is really funny. This is really, really funny. CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post did not tell any of their readers, who are almost entirely Democrats, as well as ABC, CBS, NBC, did not tell the public that lockdowns not only were inefficient, they didn't work. It didn't make you any safer. In fact, almost nothing that has been done. Here it is. The numbers suggest lockdowns in Europe and the United States reduced the pandemic mortality rate by 0.2%. Shelter in place, otherwise known as solitary confinement, as suggested by in my region, Broome County Executive Jason Garnar, under the project Crush COVID, that was his. It was solitary confinement, very much like what we're seeing in Australia and New Zealand at this moment. People are being put into solitary confinement by the government, and it does not work. Masks don't. It's just not effective. It's not effective. 2.9% effective. You know what? If I said I fixed 2.9% of your brakes on your car, would you consider that to be effectively fixing the car? If you were cut and bleeding, and I stopped 2.9% of the bleeding, do you think you're going to bleed out? Come on, folks. This ain't hard to figure out. Let's put them both together. 3.1%. 3%. Let's round it up. I will round it up to 5% just for the error. Let's just round up the numbers to the near. You know what? Let's round it up to 10%, which is absolutely wrong, and it would be a 500% increase in effectiveness, but let's say it's 10% effective. All of it put together. Is that really helping? Especially when you realize I'm multiplying it by hundreds of percent. But yet, this is what's going to help you. This is why you had to lose your job, why you lost your business. It's why you had to move. It's why you don't have doctors anymore. I don't know. Maybe it's me. You can always tell me I'm wrong. You can always call in 607-242-1582. Tell me I'm wrong. Dow mentions, I believe in the old adage, quote, an armed society is a polite society, end quote, with the qualifier that everyone is appropriately trained and communities know how to work with local law enforcement. I believe there's a community, a town in South Carolina. It is a law, I believe it's South Carolina. It is a law that every adult in the town must be armed. Period. It is a law. Everyone must be armed. The last time that they had a murder, someone was killed, was a homicide. It was, I believe, 30 years ago. So for 30 years, pretty effective. pretty efficient. They also have lower than average amounts of rape. They have lower than average amounts of violence, period. And they don't have shootings. So, you know what? I'm telling you, teach the kids how to use guns. Tina DeBella says, GoFundMe does that all the time. I stopped donating to them years ago. They have canceled funding for cops, conservatives. Yeah, and there are many, many programs. But I think this one is really catching people's attention in a way that the other really horrendous things they've done. And I think people are finally realizing they're coming for you next. In every case, when I say they shut me down because I talk about Arizona the wrong way, if I mention the pandemic the wrong way, if I talk about the vaccine mandates the wrong way, even if I'm right, even if what I said is absolutely true, even when I quote the CDC, then they will punish me and quote, it's not about me. It's about you. It's about silencing you. Because again, it's obey. All of this is obey. Not because it's the best thing to do, not because it's the right thing to do, not because you're in the military. It's because they want power over you. And they happens to be progressives and the democratic socialists. But you can tell me I'm wrong, and I'm happy to hear why. Also, by the way, I should also mention, I'm always happy to hear you agree with me. You can call in and tell me that too. Jeanette mentions depression and suicide are both up. We have not seen the long-term fallout yet. It's actually, overdoses are up over 81%. Suicides and depression are up at least 35%, according to the last studies that I saw, and they have been hiding the studies. Crime, violent crime, is up on average 35% across the country. So we are seeing results, the long-term results, like what happens to children who have never been able to socialize around other children. What happens to them? What happens to people who have been trained and punished, kind of like Pavlov's dog, to be isolated and to obey? What happens to them when they go into a world, hopefully, where they are able to make free choices and they no longer know how to do that? What happens to them? This is not a pretty picture. So, Jeanette, 2.9%. These people are beyond help. Once people were terrified, they lost critical thinking ability. It has to end. Well, that's the thing. Which is why, again, this program, why we constantly say emotions are meaningless. Don't talk to us about emotions. See, emotions are really effective, and politicians love when you are emotional. And I know this for a fact because I know tons of politicians across the country and a couple even overseas. I know these politicians for many years. And I can tell you, when your emotions are going, it is great because you can do anything they want while you're emotional. That's why they want it to be emotional. If they ramp up the fear, if they're ramping up the anger, if they're ramping up your sadness, it doesn't matter. Why do they show a story where they're like, oh my God, that little child in Africa, Sally Fields, Africa, do you see all these children that are starving to death? Why is she saying it that way? Because now you're emotional. And maybe you're going to send her the $15 to save that kid's life. Okay. Politics isn't any different. It is the exact same marketing scam. Nancy Pelosi running around going, hey, well, we need to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill. But don't worry, because it's a great bill, and we're giving you stuff. We're giving you free stuff. Pass the bill. Free stuff. Pass the bill. Don't worry about waiting for the ink to dry. Don't read anything. Pass the bill, because it's free stuff. By the way, we're raising your taxes like 1,000%. By the way, you don't get any choices in your health care. By the way, men are going to be paying for prenatal care. They're going to pay for OBGYN checkups. Men, not trans men, men. Oh, yeah, but don't read the fine print. Don't worry about that. It's going to be okay. Build back better. We need Build Back Better to fix our infrastructure. The bill only pays for $100 billion. That is less than half. Actually, it's 1/4 what we actually need just to keep the electrical grid in place. 1/4. But we're going to spend all the money that we could be spending on that on kids in schools to train them how to be a better progressive. God help me. God help me. So yeah, 2.9%. And we knew these numbers a long time ago. It was obvious to everyone. How obvious was it? Easy. Look at the pandemic in 2020, 2021. And did the numbers increase? Did you wear 2 masks? Did the numbers increase? Yup. Did you get shots? Did the numbers increase? Yup. Did you get 2 shots? Yup. And it still increased. Did you lock yourself in a house and pretended that you were a hermit in some Himalayan cave? Yup. Did you still get the pandemic? Yup. Okay. None of those policies work. They're not efficient. Especially as we watch the numbers climb. And by the way, when I say the numbers, cases climbed. Cases climbed. And 97%, and I believe the number's higher than this, but 97% of people survive. 97% of people survive. And we went into a panic that was the most inefficient response you could possibly do to this. And the side effect is the government is able to control your health care and make micro decisions about your personal health, whether you like it or not. They can control what job you work at, or if you're able to work at all. They get to control your income. They're driving up the prices, so you only get to have the things that you need, and you don't get to speak. You get taught to obey. More importantly, your children are being taught to obey. This is not about me at 53. It's not about you at 35. I know my audience average age. It's not you at 35. It's not me at 53. It's your kid who is watching everything that is happening. They're watching how you're being punished. When you went out and I went out to the event and I covered the vaccine mandates, and the kids watched as no one knew about it because no other news source except me covered the event. Oh, we can't talk about things. When they watched their parents, 34,000 doctors and nurses and healthcare workers who had been overworked for 18 months at that point, when they had been overworked doing overtime for 18 months, a year and a half in a row, and they instantly get fired and the family has to move because they can't get unemployment because appointed Governor Holtrue wants to impress a bunch of socialists. The kids watch that and go, I lost all my friends because my parents defied the government. I'll remember that. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good thing. This is about obey. And you can tell me you're wrong. You can tell me you're wrong. I'm happy to hear that. Hot Chicks mentions happy, happy, joy, joy. Ren and Stimpy. And yes, push the red button. The big, bright red button. I get the reference. Jeanette mentions right to speak, period, versus obey, 100% push back hard. That's what I do every week. Everywhere in the world. And as you notice, I'm paying attention to stuff. We started the program off, Jeanette, you didn't see it. We started off the program talking about what's going on in Poland, what's going on in Russia. We started talking about what's happening about the migrant caravan that's coming to the United States that currently has 4,000 people. It literally increased by 400% the number of people that are coming to the United States border that will be here by the end of February. And I expect it to be somewhere between, I'm saying 10 to 15,000 people by the time they hit our southern border. So we were talking about that. We are speaking up because my job is to tell you about some of these stories and to consider the consequences that no one else is willing to tell you about, not because it's going to make you happy, but because now you're prepared and you can do something about it. In February of 2021, we told you the economy was going to crash in the second half of 2021. We were right. We said that in February. No one else told you about that until November. We were talking to you about, well, look at this year, January. We've been ahead of almost every single news story that's been out there. Telling you, pay attention, be prepared. It's going to get worse. But we have control and we can change these things. But do not rely on CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, ABC, CBS, NBC. I will even say don't trust any of the right-wing news media because they do similar things, not nearly as bad, not nearly as often, but they do it too. Do not trust. Verify for yourself. Read the stories. Pay attention to the news and remember how they've changed it because they constantly change their story. I want to talk about Bill Maher for a second. And I don't know how many people watch Bill Maher. Let me ask a question here. Do people watch Bill Maher? So Bill Maher is supposed to be yes, this is a snafu. By the way, Jeanette, you're right. This is a snafu. It's terrible for the young kids, and they are being pushed down a single path, just like at SUNY Broome, where they're training kids to hate people based on the color of their skin. That if you are white, you are evil. If you are black, Hispanic, Asian, well, then you're a victim. That's what they're teaching at SUNY Broome, and I disagree with it, and I will call it out every day. So a lot of people lately have been talking about this guy, Bill Maher. He's a former stand-up comedian who used to have a TV show back in the day called Politically Incorrect. He was on ABC, hour-long show. It was nightly. He got kicked off of ABC News because when it was the Twin Towers were destroyed, he said the equivalent of the United States got what it deserved, essentially. And as you might imagine, there were a lot of Americans who were very upset about that, who took some degree of offense at the loss of 3,000 lives, over 3,000 lives, senselessly, because of some maniac and his belief in religion, a specific form of his religion. So, Bill Maher, that's Bill Maher's background. He is a far left individual. Although he is trying to say he is not a far left communist. Okay. I don't really see much of a difference between the two, but that's who he is. He has a show on HBO. He's had it for 9 years now, which he calls, what does he call it? Not politically correct. I don't know. I don't care. But he's got a show on once a week. He shows up on HBO. And previously, Bill Maher has been known for things like...
That's right. The Services Employees International Union.
What is this? See, I had it set. I hate this. Well, Bill Maher is known for things like saying that you have to vote, Democrats need to vote for Joe Biden, even if Joe Biden sexually assaulted a woman. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. Didn't matter if it was true. Even if Joe Biden sexually assaulted a woman or many women, because he was alleged to have sexually assaulted 7 women, it doesn't matter. You should ignore it It's not important. Those women aren't important. The election is important, so you have to vote because Trump bad. Don't believe me? You don't have to. May 10th, 2020, coming from the Daily Mail. That's what he said. That's who he is. And, you know, he's more than willing to stand up for Jeff Zucker, as Jeff Zucker violates the ethics of journalism, as he has inappropriate relationships, as he helps former disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo. And what was supposed to be in this video and was teed up, and I somehow screwed that up. There it is. Where is it? I have it here. Nope. Bill Maher also promised that he was begging, there it is. Bill Maher, June 9th, 2018, on Real Clear Politics, he's hoping for the economy to crash so that his party could win an election. He wanted a recession. He wanted a depression for you. He wanted you to be bankrupt. He wanted you to lose your home, lose your job, so that his party could win an election. I didn't say that. Politico is quoting Bill Maher saying that June 2018. He was willing to throw you under a bus. He was more than happy that if you were a woman, doesn't matter, you can be sexually assaulted as long as his political preferences were kept in place, that his political ideology had power. He doesn't care if you have a job, if you starve, if your family is able to be fed, as long as his political preferences are in charge. Because he's already a multimillionaire. He doesn't live your life, and he doesn't care about you or your kids. In fact, very often he does mention that he doesn't like kids. With that said, I want you to hear just this section.
We're beginning.
Hang on a second.
Time to do you off pandemic. President into my office.
So people are going to tell you that he's some kind of great guy. Now, I brought all that up so you understand in full context, which today no one wants to talk about, that we are hearing Democrats who are saying that Bill Maher is some kind of evil, horrible, terrible person. That they think he is becoming obnoxious and wrong, not for saying that women need to vote for Joe Biden, even if Joe Biden sexually assaulted women, even though Me Too would say Joe Biden shouldn't be running. That doesn't matter. It's even though he said he doesn't mind if you live on the streets, poor as dirt with your kids starving, that's not upsetting to the Democrats like John Cooper, the former national finance chair of Draft Biden, the Long Island campaign chair for Barack Obama, the majority leader of Suffolk County, New York's legislature. He doesn't care about any of the other things that would destroy your life. No, he's upset with Bill Maher because Bill Maher said, there it is, because this is what Bill Maher said.
President Biden's handling of the pandemic started off polling pretty well, but now a majority disapprove. It's time to do what a growing list of countries have done and announce we're going back to something more like normal, beginning with recognizing that what we're doing to kids is unnecessary and horrible, and I don't even like kids. But making kids...
Of course he doesn't like kids. Like I said, in 2018, he didn't care if your kids starved to death. He wanted a recession so that you would vote the way he wanted to see you vote. And oddly enough, we got a recession thanks to the pandemic in 2020. But anyway, going on.
Who have a COVID survivability rate of 99.98%, mask up like bandits? Unfortunately, the thing that's getting stolen is their education, their sanity, and their social skills. A study this week from a professor at Johns Hopkins concluded that the lockdowns we all suffered through had little impact in reducing COVID deaths. Okay, that's kind of a big one to get wrong. Last July, President Biden said, "You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations." Well, I already knew that was wrong then, and now we all do. The former director of the CDC, Robert Redfield, believes COVID originated in a lab, and now our intelligence agencies agree it might have. But for months on social media, it was banned to even discuss it. Look, I'm not saying the medical establishment isn't trying to figure shit out or that they're corrupt, although there is some of that. But how about just wrong? Wrong a lot. Wrong about HIV, wrong about lockdowns, wrong about kids, wrong about how you couldn't get it if you were vaccinated. Remember washing our packages? And there's never been any research showing that outdoor transmission is likely or common, yet LA County says we're still supposed to mask up for big outdoor events, like we'll be at the Super Bowl. Well, supposed to. It's all theater, watching athletes mix it up on the court and then mask on the sideline, not being able to touch a menu, but watching them touch my food. Maskless at dinner while sitting but not standing. And by the way, if Applebee's really cared about our health, they would make us cover our mouths after the food arrives.
This is what the left is upset about. Because one of their own has just pointed out every one of the idiotic, useless, inefficient, ineffective things that were done to manipulate you. And because he dared to say something that wasn't approved, now, and only now, we hear John Cooper and these people being pissed off about Bill Maher. When he's telling us things we already knew since the beginning of this pandemic, if not before. Things that have been said on this show. But meanwhile, they had no problem with him promising, praying, begging for you to be bankrupted, for your kids to starve. They had no problem with that. They had no problem with him saying that Me Too doesn't count when it's for his political party to gain power. It didn't matter. Me Too, you as a woman, you're meaningless in the face of him getting the political outcome that he wants to have. They had no problem saying that. They had no problem with the fact that Bill Maher probably knows, and I have no doubt knows, CNN boss Jeff Zucker, and was perfectly happy with Jeff Zucker being able to manipulate you. So people are saying, hey, Bill Maher turned the corner. He's come around. Thank God, he's a good guy now. No, he's not. He's a snake in the grass. And I say that directly to you, Bill Maher. I think you're a snake in the grass. I think that, yes, you have finally woken up to the consequences of the very things you asked for. You begged and pleaded. You threw women under a bus. You stomped on the heads of the poor to get what you wanted. And now we are all suffering for it. And now, and only now, when it's starting to affect your life 2 years later, you're turning around and going, well, this is a little too far. Screw you, Bill Maher. This was obvious and absolutely predictable. We knew this, and we knew how bad this would be, and you were too busy politicking to care about the people who watch your show, who pay for HBO, who pay your salary. And I'm nowhere near big enough to really do anything about it. But if I saw Bill Maher in person, I'd tell him that to his face. If Bill Maher ever wanted me to, if he would even deign to look down to see me at this level on YouTube, I would be happy to give him as long as he would ever want on this program, not that he would ever need it, to address everything I've just said. Because it is personal. Because Bill Maher, through his actions, have affected women and the poor and me and you and everyone around the world. And you might think, Mike, that's just wrong and you've misunderstood. Or you may say, well, forgive him. He's seeing the light of day. Fantastic. I'm happy that he's finally woken up and understood even a little bit. And trust me, it's a little bit. Listen to the whole monologue. He's still just as progressive as he ever was. He still hates Republicans as much as he ever has. He hates the conservatives. He's still more than willing to throw people under a bus for his political ideology when it suits his purpose. He's still the same person. He just is inconvenienced right now. And maybe that's harsh. I admit, could be. And maybe I'm falling victim to the very thing I say we shouldn't fall victim to on this program, having some emotion. But I'm also giving you the facts. I am passionate about this. And I don't believe that he gets absolved of the very things he asked for when those consequences are in his face. That the reality of what he begged us to do, what he begged us to live with, comes to be our everyday normal. You don't get to turn around and go, hey, I just got bit by your dog. Well, yeah, you just spent the last 15 minutes antagonizing him. Of course you did. And I'm not sorry for you. Bill Maher asked for a recession. The economy is tanking. We're at 7% and increasing inflation. Real world, you're spending 25% more of your money on everyday goods. Bill Maher doesn't care, but it's starting to affect him now because inflation is going up on everything for everyone. It's starting to hit his pocket now. Viewership is down because it's starting to hit his pocket now. Because Biden is a screw up, because Biden and Kamala Harris have failed at everything they have done, and they have lost respect in the United States and overseas. And this is affecting his life now. So now he's upset, he's concerned, and he wants to speak up, joining the bandwagon at the end of the day after we've been riding around town screaming that everything's on fire. Guess what? You don't get any victory points for showing up after everyone did the fight. But you may disagree. You may think he deserves credit and that he deserves to be praised because he finally woke up to what he asked for. And that's okay. You have the right to have that opinion and you have the right to agree. I just want to point out that hypocrisy amongst Democrats who are only upset because he's now possibly hurting them. In fact, he's just admitting the problem that already exists that he helped to bring in that's going to cost them the 2022 midterm elections. And they're pissed off because he's not helping them anymore. He's not covering for them anymore. He's not throwing Me Too women under a bus. He's not throwing children and the poor under a bus anymore. And that he's actually saying, well, maybe slow down a little bit. And because he's daring to say, slow down, maybe this is a bit much, they're going to throw him under a bus. Well, you know what? You're a bunch of hypocrites and you have no concern for the American people. If this is the worst thing that he's done that makes you go, oh my God, he might be going too far. He hasn't even started to see the daylight. That's my opinion. But let me look at some of the comments to hear what your opinion is. And again, you can call in to 607-242-1582 if you agree, and especially if you disagree. Tell me why. And I will not be emotional and pick on you like I just did on him. But you know what? He's a multi-millionaire with exposure to tens of millions of people. I think he can take it from me. And if he can't, well, screw him anyway. I don't care. So anyway, the program. Hey, Graham. Graham is with us. Glad to see you here. Graham mentions it's Real Time with Bill Maher. That's the name of the show. Couldn't think of it. Don't care because I'm not trying to promote him. Screw him. Jason from Bain. Well, these are the things that Biden did. Absolutely, it's true. But now we can talk about them. Remember, on this program, for the better part of the last 2 years, I couldn't mention, I had to dance around mentioning all those things. My channel was nearly shut down. We got strikes. We got warnings. We got strikes. We were shut down. Yeah, we were nearly silenced because we said the same things he just said. We just happened to say it earlier, back when it was not approved, more than it's not approved now. Back in the time when they said, oh my God, how dare you not obey? But that's another thing. So Jeanette says, what a bunch of, was on my way out, still have to be 9/11/2001 official story. People still believe they then housing bubble at all. What the hell with this? Yeah, there's so many things. And I remember that the housing bubble started in 1986. That's when it was created. It burst in 2008. It was created in 1986. I remember what Bill Maher said and how he said it. I remember, as I showed you, I have not forgotten what he was saying just 2-3 years ago. And I think no one else should forget either. Tina mentions, it doesn't bother me that he doesn't like kids. Not everyone does. It bothers me more when a leftist pretends everything is great and lies about actual truths. Well, my point isn't so much that whether he likes kids or not. It's that we know he doesn't like kids to the point that he didn't care if they would starve because their parents were out of a job. He didn't care about the consequences. He doesn't care. And now he wants to say, oh, but I care about the kids. You should care about the kids. Because even though I'm willing to throw them under a bus, and he's counting on the fact that the American public has completely forgotten that his evil, well, I can't call it evil, that his selfishness is what caused all this. That upsets me. And I think that needs to be called out more. And no one is calling him out for what I'm speaking about. No one else is referencing what I'm referencing. Nobody else in the news media is willing to say this about Bill Maher. I am. But, we're trying to get to 1,234 subscribers. 1,234. Yeah. Doesn't seem to be a very large number. It isn't. And every day I get a subscriber and I watch that subscriber being removed by YouTube, which is why we're still at, I think, 746, 747, because tomorrow they're going to take away one of the people. They're unsubscribing people almost as fast as they are subscribing to this channel. Don't ask me why. I don't know. YouTube won't answer me. But then we got people like Bill Maher. Oh, I can't tell you how much it just, he's a snake. Jeanette says, I'm spitting truth politic, and that's me. Bravo, these snakes need to hear us. Despicable. It is despicable. Thank you for being with us, Jeanette. I hope you subscribe. I hope you come back. I hope you join us, and one day you can even call in. We appreciate our audience, no matter whether you agree or disagree, no matter what your political leanings. Dina says, I've often said things about the left that would be considered, quote, unchristian, end quote, and mean. It seems like you have feelings about Bill Maher that many Trump haters have for him. I think he truly believes what he is saying, and perhaps it took for his life to be affected to realize it. All these entertainers live a whole different life than we do, and they lose touch. And you know what? I do not disagree with you, Tina. He has an entirely different life. And yes, he may have a different view of these things. And he has every right to it. And my passion is not purely emotional. As I'm pointing out, I remember the things he has done. I remember the impact he has had, the consequences he has made. And I do not feel that he has made enough of a contrition for now to be lauded. I will not laud him for waking up to what he did. I'm not saying that he doesn't believe what he's saying right now. I'm saying this is all because, in part, it's because of what he did. And if he wants to suddenly turn around and say, oh, how could you progressives, how dare you do these things to our children, to our families, to our lives? He needs to also, at the same time, in the same voice, say, and I'm sorry for my part in giving you the capability to do that. He needs to speak up and say, I apologize to the women, to me too, to those kids who are starving today because their parents lost their jobs. I apologize for you. What I did in this too, to get this man, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, elected and into the White House to destroy this nation so much that it's not just affecting the poor and the middle class, it's reaching up to his lofty pedestal and making him wiggle a little bit. And that's the thing. I'm more than willing to hold him accountable for that, just like I will for the right and everyone else. But I think he's being lauded, and he's relishing the fact that people forgot that he's the guy who helped cause it. That doesn't fly with me. But, again, everyone is more than happy on this program to say, Mike, you're wrong, or I disagree, or I see this a different way. Perfectly valid. And Tina goes on to say, actually, Lynn said, almost there, you right, you rock, Michael. Thank you, Lynn. And Tina says, I have to disagree with you on this one. He didn't say he cared about kids all of a sudden. He said they were lying about these mandates and the BS regarding kids, and they are. And I agree. But that's fine. You know what? My friends, when you're watching the program, again, and I say this often on the show, and I'll just take a moment now to say it again, I don't expect you to be mindless robots. You're not. You're individuals. You're smart. You've lived lives. You've had experiences. You're incredibly valuable human beings. Whether you're American or not doesn't matter. I don't care what your color of skin is. I don't care what your gender is. I especially don't care what your sexual preference is. I don't care about any of that. Because you're human beings. You're valuable. You're wonderful. And I appreciate each and every one of you for watching this program, whether you watch it for 5 minutes or you watch it for the full 3 hours and 2 minutes that we've been going so far. I appreciate and I understand. And I don't expect that every conclusion I come to here, all the evidence that I provide to you is going to sway you to see the conclusions that I see. Not my point of view, not my ideology, but to see the conclusions that I see and or take precautions that I think may be necessary, or to hold people accountable that I think should be held accountable. Because you're human beings, you're individuals with experiences, you're valuable, and you may know things that I will never know. In fact, I am sure every person who watches this program knows at least a dozen things that I will never know in my lifetime. And you will be far better at many things than I will ever achieve, just as I will have that advantage on certain things as well. So I expect that from time to time, you're going to say, I don't agree. And I want to encourage you, whether that means calling in to 607-242-1037 1582, or typing in a comment in YouTube, on Facebook, on DLive, Twitter, on Rumble, or Odyssey, or all the other things that I'm on, or in my Discord, I'm more than happy to hear you say, well, Mike, I just don't agree with that. There's only one thing I ask for, as Tina did. Be respectful. We can respectfully disagree. And no, I don't believe this. Well, we'll just agree to disagree. Screw that. We disagree. Fantastic. That's good. Now there's something to learn. I will say, I admit it right now, perhaps I need to reevaluate. Maybe there's more emotion that I have attached to this than I should. I don't know. I'll reevaluate. And that's okay. And yeah, maybe Bill Maher did reevaluate. Maybe he has a new leaf. I haven't seen it yet. But Dow mentions it. All is forgiven when they get buyer's remorse. No. But maybe he has a different appreciation for children now. Maybe he's seen the devastation that has happened, and maybe he's trying to make contrition, even though he is a very selfish individual, based on what he has presented to the public. I don't know him personally. I can't speak about him personally. I don't know. I can only talk about the issues he has spoken about and what he has presented to the public. And he's done that in a very selfish manner. Maybe he's changed. Time will tell. But at the moment, I want people to also remember what he did and what he did to us. Graham mentions, Michael, do you think it's possible that Republicans are underestimating Obama and Biden's ability to successfully wage a propaganda campaign as we head towards the 2022 midterms? Absolutely. Oh, wait a minute. Graham. Graham also said, I think it was Sonny Hostin. Hang on. Sonny Hostin on The View, who recently said that Biden's 2-hour press conference was a reset for his administration as they go to their second year in office. First, in reference to Sonny Hostin, no. That's what they were hoping for, which is not unusual, let's be fair. All presidents, when they have a bad run, will use a press conference to try and reset the storyline, to realign their objectives, to refocus their fans, their supporters. So that's somewhat normal, and that's to be expected. Their expectations for Biden in this regard were so out of the water and just detached from reality. It's amazing. So I'm not surprised that someone on The View would say that. So he was trying to reset the impression the American people had so that he could raise his approval rating and therefore be able to leverage that towards the 2022 elections. It failed. Do I think that Republicans can underestimate Obama and Biden? Yes, they can. They have in the past. And no, I don't think we are at this moment. Because there are so many people who have been affected, and there is no way to disguise when you listen to, say, Biden in the 2-hour town hall. When he's in the town hall with CNN in March of 2021, and he tells the nation on a live town hall broadcast that black people aren't smart enough to use the internet, you cannot cover that up. It happened. When you have, Kamala Harris going on with Charlemagne, and Charlemagne is saying, your plans have failed. You failed. And Charlemagne is being called a Republican in the most disparaging way possible for citing the obvious fact that has been reported. It's not a guess. It's not a prediction. Charlemagne was talking about Manchin. Build Back Better was dead. It was reported. And she chided him. And in chiding him, she used the fact that he was, that Republicans exist as a pejorative, especially because of the color of his skin. You can't hide that from the public. That's a hate. for a large segment of this nation. 30% of this nation are Republicans. 30% are Democrats. Of the 30% of Republicans that exist in the United States, there are a growing number of Black, Hispanic, and people of color that are Republicans. They always existed, and their numbers seem to be growing. You're disparaging a huge bunch of people. So, given that, versus Barack Obama saying things are great and I'm a Democrat, the very people who disparage you, I don't think that's going to sway people. When we hear Biden come out and say, it's about unity, I'm unifying everyone, except you people who are unvaccinated, I'm going to step on you. And you, well, you're not Black. I don't know what you are, so you can go away too. And these other people, well, screw them too, because you have to obey. I don't think people are going to take that well. So, no, I don't think they're underestimating them. I think Democrats have put themselves in such a deep hole that all the usual tricks to motivate emotions and manipulate some of the news can't get them out of the hole they're in. It's just too deep. And there's no way to climb out. So, no, I don't think they're underestimating. Dow mentions the other issue that comes from this, quote, turn of opinion is that there needs to be an understanding that as soon as it becomes expedient, they would switch right back. Acknowledge the good doesn't change history. That's my concern. You know, a lot of the people who are saying, oh, I now regret voting for Joe Biden, which is, I believe the number was 42% of Democrats regret having voted for Biden. I believe it was 42%. I could be wrong on that. At this moment, they believe that. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to still support progressive ideology that Biden is employing that is ruining our lives. So, oh, they're upset that he failed, but it's not just that he failed. Those policies are inherent to failure. They were always going to fail. They failed under Obama, too. Obama just was very charismatic, but his policies failed just like they're failing now. It was the same thing. The reason why we have such a problem with our supply chain, as one example, to take you back in time, President Obama moved America from a manufacturing economy into a service economy, which killed our growth. And it hurt our quality of life. But it also set the stage so that today, when we have 5 million less people working in manufacturing than we did in 2000, that creates a problem that, okay, there's a delay in the supply chain and 15% of the items in our stores don't exist anymore. They're not there. We can't get the goods we need just for our regular average daily lives. That is a direct consequence of saying we're going to become a service economy and we're not going to manufacture things and we're going to let countries overseas and other parts of the world make the things that we used to make for ourselves. We're going to let them make it for us instead, because that'll never stop. They'll never be politically upset with the United States. There'll never be any circumstance where they won't be able to get those goods to us. And when it happens, now that it's happening, we're devastated by it. This isn't something that couldn't be predicted. It's something that we should have expected, and a lot of people did. And it gets worse from here, because we have to look at the consequences, because Obama surely didn't. And if he did, he surely didn't tell the public. The news media didn't know. And if they were smart enough and they did, they certainly didn't tell the public. And that's the problem. And that's why we will tell you. And our audience is growing. And we hope that, if you found any of this to be of interest, if you found it to be useful, please do subscribe, share, tell your friends to listen in, and let us grow. We want to hit 1,234 subscribers this year. It's not a lot. We're not asking for the world, and it costs you nothing, but it means a lot to us. So we hope you will consider that. Okay, so Dalgrim goes, it's not unusual. The song from Tom Jones gets stuck into, when I hear that, I instantly think of that. And I watch Carlton, I forget his real world name, Roberto, I forgot his last name. Roberto from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he's doing the Carlton dance to Not Unusual by Tom Jones. It's funny. Graham mentions fair points, but I fear that our political process is changing faster than we can keep up with. As in, Democrats don't need to legitimately earn votes anymore. I can't say that, and by the requirements of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and all the social media overlords, I have to say that the 2020 election was the safest, most secure election that has ever existed in the United States, which is why Joe Biden is looking to have even more legislation put in place because, as he has stated, without additional changes to the legal process, the elected process in the United States in 2022, elections will not be fair. So that's Joe Biden saying the process is flawed at this moment and may suffer from it. I will not say that, and the censors should be satisfied with that. Graham says all they need to do is ideologically silo part of the country, collect stage video evidence, and then do something to the elections, which I cannot say. Yes, which is why they want to turn the vote into a popular vote, because you need only 5 cities in America. This is true. This is a fact. Look it up, folks. Do the math. If you change the vote to a popular vote, literally all you need are 5 cities: New York, Chicago, LA, Dallas, Miami, and if you want to be safe, I think Portland and or Seattle. And once you get those cities, you're done. You win. That's it. You don't need to talk to anyone else, anywhere else, about anything else. So that is a problem. I am not going to do the Carlton dance, Dal. I will not do that. So that's the problem with that. They want to get rid of, they want to pack the courts. Again, destroys the whole purpose of it. They are the progressive Democrats. That's the Democratic Socialists of America, especially the Ithaca chapter, that especially believes in using violence to silence their opponents. Groups like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, BLM, Antifa, the far left, who are willing to use threats, intimidation, and violence to get their way. They are getting us closer and closer to a breakdown, and which is why we're seeing our nation getting closer and closer to a full separation. And the problem is, nobody wins in any of this. America is not made better by having another civil war. America is not made better by trying to divide. By the way, you can't. What are you going to divide? Every city in America? Republicans aren't isolated to, Texas. Republicans live in New York State. Republicans live in Manhattan. They live 2 blocks from you. They live next door to you everywhere in this nation. When you have political differences based on ideology, there is no dividing line. There's no separation where you go, okay, you get these 5 states, I take that 5 states. It doesn't work like that. So that means you do get a civil war, and that means that everyone loses. And absolutely, other powers will step in to an American civil war because we have too much stuff. too much weapons, too much power, too much wealth. Whether that wealth is food or coal, natural gas, just empty land. We got too much of everything, and everyone wants some of it. If there is a civil war, they will all be pushing and prodding and trying to get their piece of whatever's left over afterwards, because it's worth more than what they got right now. We don't want to go down that road if we can help it. That's my belief. I will not, no, Dal. There will not be a dance reveal at 1,234 subs. That's not going to happen. No. And I got to type that out before someone tries to spread around, think I'm going to do that. No. Okay. So, no, we're not going to get a dance of anything. Not getting any dances, not getting songs, not getting, I don't do any of that stuff. That's not me. One, I can't sing, I can't dance, I'm horrible at all that. I don't care. Second of all, I don't care. I'm not doing it. Maybe I'll shave the beard. There you go. Did I cover? Wow, I covered everything I was going to talk about today. 3.5 hours. 3 hours, 20 minutes. So, God, I love being with you guys. I really do appreciate this. I have no idea how many of you are watching this, by the way, because I see the numbers are they're always hidden from me. I don't get to see it until after the show when everything is done. So I have no idea. But I can tell you this, whether it's one person or there are hundreds of people or thousands of people, and we do get hundreds and thousands of people to be involved in some of the episodes, I look forward to seeing each and every one of you. I want to remind everyone really quick that we will have an interview with Larry Sharpe, my friend, who is a libertarian running for the governor's race. And I will be happy to speak with him. We'll be talking to him on Friday. We'll get that video out to you shortly afterwards. I do want to mention that we are open to speaking to appointed Governor Kathy Hochul and do an interview with her if she will wish. We would also be happy to do an interview with Lee Zeldin if he would like, as a Republican, to talk about his race as the governor. We are not exclusive here. We will talk to any and all of the candidates under the same basis and rules. Anything and everything said to us will be reported back to you verbatim without any change. You will be able to see it all. So we're open to that. We're looking to speak to several congressional candidates, and we're trying to lock down those dates from them to be able to tell you what's going on, and several other individuals that we're looking to get onto this program. So we're trying to work it out. Von Pearl. Hello, Vaughn. I don't recall if you've been with us before, but thank you for joining us. Vaughn mentions, look at the new gerrymandering of Broome County, where I live, has been taken over by Democrats in Dutchess County. That's not exactly correct, Vaughn, but they did gerrymander New York State. I think we talked about it last week when we announced the news, when it was still a rumor. But yeah, since 2016, I've been warning people that Broome County was going to become part of the New York 19. and that Antonio Delgado is our congressman, and Antonio Delgado refuses to respond for the last 4 months to any comment, quote, and tweet we have directed at him. Every email we have sent to him, he has refused to ever comment. And we hope that he's now going to change his opinion, since we are directly his constituents and our votes go towards him. He should be accountable to the public. So far, he has not been. So yeah, it's evil what was done because of the gerrymandering to silence people's votes. And it's upsetting. So I agree with Yvonne. It is terrible. But it's not unexpected. I got to say that. Graham says, some people are saying that the Second American Civil War is already well underway and that most have not recognized yet simply because it's not kinetic, i.e. with guns, bullets, tanks, and so forth. The new Civil War, they say, is legal, political, economic, and can be seen in some of the movements happening where countries of one state attempt to secede from their state and join their neighboring state in opposite ideological governance. One example I can think of is a county in eastern Oregon trying to secede and join Idaho. There's a couple of other examples. I am familiar with that. But I disagree. In my experience, both in my life and in studying it, civil wars are very, very clear. Civil wars have a physical component. Now, there is always ideology that precedes it. There are always economic factors involved in it. But at the end of the day, it will be physical. Because, again, you have two people, as an example, who are next door neighbors, or maybe they live in an apartment next to each other. You cannot separate that. That is not something that you can just evaporate. That is something that continues to build and build until it hits a powder keg. And once that powder keg goes off, you can't separate everybody in an apartment building, in a county, in a state, just by saying, okay, well, you guys are over there and I'm over here. So yes, there is a legal, political, economic component of every civil war, but every civil war is physical because somebody has to take charge. Otherwise, there is nothing but chaos left over. Dow says we should acknowledge there is a current information war. Yes, that the circumstances that make it prudent to prepare with hard goods and long-term stored food, learn a skill, the rest can be active in locally. Yes, but that again is part of what I'm saying. That's the preceding. That's not a precedent, but preceding. It precedes an actual physical conflict, and that is always the case. The tensions politically, with information, propaganda, legality, always grow until you have an inciting incident, and then you have that war. It always works that way. Now, the inciting incident and the war may be minor, but it always happens. Look at 1930s Germany, where we had the chancellor was elected, you had the beer hall push, Kristallnacht. These things all happened. That was the sea change, the civil war that occurred in Germany, but it wasn't, and there was violence and there was a separation, there was fighting, but it was over very quickly because the political and legal battle that happened beforehand essentially limited the number of people who were going to fight. That's the reason why those political and legal take place first. It is a way to either diminish or isolate those that are in opposition, pushing other people who are on the sidelines out of the conflict altogether. They're just going to deal with the resulting winners. And that's when you have your conflict. And once all the people in the way are moved out, and all you have are the two different, usually it's just two different ideologies, and they come head to head, The one that's prepared the most is the one that's going to win. And they get to win everything. So there will always be a physical component of it. And I think what people are saying is the Civil War now is really the lead up to a civil war. If you follow my meaning, if you follow my understanding on that. But not everyone will agree. And I would hope we never have to get to that final inciting incident that tips us over. We're very close to it. I don't know what it could be, and I don't want to find out. Because civil war would be devastating. Kind of like the way that Bill Maher wanted a recession. He wanted people to lose their jobs and to be hungry. Well, here it is. And it's devastating. And it could get worse. And it is getting worse. Same thing with a civil war. It's far worse than what people think it could be. Far, far worse. And I hope we never have to get there. All right, folks. So we've been on for 3 hours, 30 minutes, and I am going to end it here. We've had a very long, good, productive conversation, I think. We've covered a lot of information. I hope I covered things that were important to you and addressed some of the concerns you may have. I hope I brought some new information to you that you were not aware of. Please remember on YouTube, you can go to the description and it will have all the links of everything that we've discussed. We again ask you to consider, please, to subscribe. It means a lot to us. It means pressing a button for you. Whether on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, BitChute, or join our discount, or all the above. We want to thank you, and we hope you're going to be well. We'll have stories throughout the week and on the weekend. Every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be live talking to you talking with you and everyone around the world. Thank you guys, and I want you to be well. See you soon. Thank you. Thank you.